Good evening, everyone. I call the October 28th, 2024 school board meeting to order. It is 6:02 p.m. We're in conference room C of the Fisher Administration Building at 12121 West North Avenue. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Mr. Morris.
Here.
Dr. Hoyt. Here. Mr. Wadier.
Here.
Dr. Worley.
Here.
Ms. Heimer-Rowland. Here. Mr. Meyer.
Here.
Dr. Jessup Banger.
Here. We do have a forum this evening. I would like to entertain a motion to adjust the order of our agenda this evening.
Yes, I would wish to move to have the oath of office to student board representatives be handled prior to public comment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Now, can we ask, is everyone who the students have coming to see this, are they here?
Okay.
One more in the parking lot.
One parent person in the parking lot, so we.
Okay, so everybody's arrived? Okay, so we don't, right, okay.
Any discussion needed on this item? Please call the roll.
Mr. Morris.
Yes.
Dr. Hoyt. Yes. Mr. Wadier.
Yes.
Dr. Worley. Yes. Ms. Heimer-Rowland. Yes. Mr. Meyer.
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger.
Yes. Several years ago, the school board added student representatives, two representing Wauwatosa West High School, two representing Wauwatosa East High School. Those students go through an application and a selection process. They joined us for the first time 2 weeks ago and did an outstanding job representing their schools very well with thoughtful questions and comments throughout the meeting. It's great to have students back at the board table with us again tonight. And Mr. Meyer, our board clerk, will be administering the oath. For those in the community, we also did an onboarding orientation session a week ago Monday, we could go today, with our new colleagues on the board. So welcome again, all of you. And Mr. Meyer, the floor is yours.
Okay, yes, please, if you could, the four of you could rise.
And if there's any parents of student board reps, you can come up front. You can get a better shot.
Perhaps go to the microphone, the four of you, like you're a quartet.
Four students.
I have no pitch pipe, but so we could just.
So he wants you to go to the main microphone, yes.
Right. And if the parents would
There
like.
you go,
Right in the
Ben.
center. We'll-
Yep.
And then parents, if you want to come to this
Parents
side,
wanna come here.
that'd be great.
So you could get the.
Congratulations, buddy. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Ready? What we're gonna do, we're gonna raise our right hands. And I will read the oath in phrases. Hopefully short phrases. And please all in unison, repeat after me. And at the part where your name is, say your name, okay? Are we ready? Okay, so I, and your name, having been appointed to the office of student representative
Having been appointed to the office of student representative
on the Wauwatosa School Board
on the Wauwatosa School Board
for the 2024 to 25 school year,
for the 2024 to 2025 school year,
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof,
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof,
swear or affirm that I
swear or affirm that I
will support the Constitution of the United States
will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of said office to the best of my ability.
of said office to the best of my ability.
You're now members. I congratulate you. Time, so we don't forget, we're going to sign these documents. And I will, I have one copy here that I will put my signature on it. around. You're welcome. And copies. The copies are good. Congratulations, Officer.
Congratulations, students, and thank you for your service, and thank you, Mr. Meyer. We will now return to public comment. Members of the Wauwatosa School Board value the input of students, parents, staff members, and community members. The board's regularly scheduled meetings provide an opportunity for opinions and concerns to be expressed publicly. The board values all respectfully consider this input in decision-making. The board requests that individuals limit their comment on each item to 3 minutes. Following any comment, an individual board member may respond on the issue raised. However, it is not the intent of public comment portion of the agenda for the board to enter debate with a member or members of the community. Because non-agenda items are not publicly posted in advance, no action will be taken on public comment regarding non-agenda items this evening. Mr. Morris is going to be providing a timer as well as about a 30-second note for anybody who is speaking this evening, and we've got 30 minutes set aside for public comment. I will begin in the room this evening with public comment, and then I'll allow an opportunity for 1 or 2 folks online as well at some point along the way. Is there anybody this evening who is public comment who's in the room?
Hello. Hi, I'm Libby Woodard. I'm the Secretary of the WSTEM Governance Board. On behalf of the WSTEM Governance Board Executive Team, we've prepared a short statement regarding the letter sent from the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, WIL, to Dr. Means and the Wauwatosa School Board on October 22nd, 2024. The WSTEM Governance Board Executive Team was unaware of WIL's actions against the district until we received updates from parents who spoke to the TMJ reporter after school on that day, Tuesday, October 22nd. We have not asked WIL to represent the school. Thank you.
My name is Dan Anderson, parent of WSTEM and MSTEM students. I'm reading a letter that was submitted to the school board on behalf of myself and others. School board members and Superintendent Means, first and foremost, we want you to know that we are saddened and disappointed to see the news coverage last week on the threats of legal action brought to the WIL Institute against the school district. We do not agree with nor are we aligned with these threats toward the district in any way. We hear your concerns about the WSTEM charter school's lack of accessibility to all district students. We hear that you are fighting for and representing every student in Wauwatosa. We thank you for your work. We feel our children have been given access to very high quality educational opportunities within this district, opportunities that we agree should be more widely accessible. A group from our WSTEM, MSTEM, and wider Wauwatosa school community met yesterday in our dining room to discuss this issue. The parents at the table had many children among them from elementary ed through high school and beyond. All have had at least some experience with STEM programming offered through the district, either at WSTEM, MSTEM, and in some cases both. For what it's worth, none of the parents who sat with us to discuss this issue will have elementary age students in 2031 when the district is recommending to sunset WSTEM. We too feel passionately about all students in the district. We believe all students deserve access to these opportunities and the best education we can afford them. We are asking you to consider giving future generations of district students and parents the opportunity you have given us. Imagine more students engage in project-based learning. Imagine kids teaching kids through peer-to-peer instruction that results in more confident learners and generally more curious people. Consider making these unique and demonstrably effective learning opportunities available to more kids in our community rather than shutting them down entirely. The benefits include continuing to attract excellent educators to our district, and ensuring that kids and families don't leave to other districts or to private schools. If another concern is that there is stronger demand for these programs and there is space to accommodate, then expanding the program rather than sunsetting seems like an option that should at the very least be considered by the school board. Our collective belief after witnessing years of STEM education in action is that the district STEM for All proposal just plain and simply will not work. While admirable, we feel the 1 hour elective option undermines the benefits of blended curriculum and project-based learning that has proven to be so successful. Also, the STEM for All proposal appears to be a concept rather than a true and organized plan at this point. Further, at the last board meeting, you heard from numerous community members strongly supporting the existing STEM programs. On the other hand, only one member spoke in favor of STEM for All. This feedback from the community suggests strongly that it does not want the board to eliminate the STEM programs and that STEM for All may not be an adequate replacement. We're asking you to vote against the recommendation to sunset WSTEM at this time. We're asking you to vote against phasing out MSTEM. We're asking for more time to explore expansion options for STEM that would increase accessibility to more families in our community. We're asking for more time and a concrete, achievable plan prior to recommending the sunsetting of a vibrant, successful school community. We're asking you to remove any and all verbiage recommending a final contract. Thank you for your time and you put into ensuring as many kids as possible in our community get the best education possible. Thank you to advance for considering this.
May I say, and I'll play this card for the first time in 21 years, the fadeaway comment has never before been seen. So as a
You might see it again.
as a question of style, it's a winner. So it was well done.
Hello, my name is Angie Mason. As a parent and as a public high school educator, I'm here to advocate for Tulsa's STEM schools and MSTEM in particular. First, I believe that closing Tulsa STEM schools will do a tremendous disservice to students with unique needs. My child is on the spectrum and is in his 6th grade year in the MSTEM program. He is having a much smoother transition to middle school than I anticipated. MSTEM's project-based approach is igniting his imagination and building his social skills. The Future City Project is allowing my son to leverage his strengths such as reading and research while being supported to communicate his ideas verbally to his peers and negotiate a final plan. This was only made possible because his teacher has scaffolded this work, building an ample team building that has made him feel seen and supported by his small group. Can you imagine how powerful this is for a child who so often feels invisible at school? A child with autism learns best in a predictable environment with trusted teachers and peers. I know how difficult it would be for our son to achieve the same growth and gain this high level of confidence if he were part of the larger middle school environment, constantly accustoming himself to different classrooms, teachers, and students. Different kids have different needs. One size does not fit all. The district's one-size-fits-all homogenization of what Wauwatosa schools look like just doesn't cut it. We need extraordinary measures to truly help all kids learn. Finally, I believe there are solutions in reach. To address the gap in STEM students' ELA preparation, the STEM schools could fill a vacancy with an ELA certified teacher to join their existing team. ELA teachers would jump at the opportunity to teach their subject area in a project-based environment and to help other teachers along in the process. This isn't rocket science. To address feelings of unequal access to these schools, Rethink the lottery process. Guarantee an equal amount of seats to every neighborhood elementary school so every neighborhood's children are represented. Actively recruit students, especially those with unique learning styles and needs, to enter the lottery.
30 seconds.
If wait lists are long, slowly work to expand these schools to serve more students. MPS is a district renowned for making Montessori accessible. Put TOSA on the map, leveraging this amazing program to make our district a destination district. We all agree that STEM learning needs to be a part of every child's education. However, by shutting down Wauwatosa's existing STEM programs instead of leveraging them to build STEM for all, I fear there are big promises being made with extraordinary costs.
Right.
There are no excuses for sunsetting TOSA's STEM programs when they are meeting the unique needs of children, not traditionally well served in a general education classroom. These children have been ignored for far too long. I urge you board members to vote no tonight. Thank you.
I may shuffle off when I leave. Sorry, I have, my name is Megan Blaney, and I have probably hours of things I could say about the subject, but I will try to keep it to what I thought would be the most important thing for me to leave with you guys. I'm a mother of a UW-Madison freshman and WSTEM, MSTEM alum. As the only reader in my son's K-5 class, not at WSTEM, my son was sent in the hallway to read by himself. I made countless attempts with the school to move him to the first grade class for reading or even be a part of a reading group with other kids in his grade, with no luck. The next year, he was admitted to WSTEM and his whole world changed. His MAPS test scores literally jumped 20 percentage points. If there was an area in which he excelled, he was able to work with others at the same level. As I write this, I try to think about the best part of STEMs that will change your mind and convince you of what an amazing place it is. I imagine that there will be many others that will do that, so instead I will let you know why creating a STEM for every child, if not done properly, will not even come close to duplicating the success of WSTEM. When my son was in his last year of WSTEM, MSTEM was only in its second or third year of existence. To my knowledge, it was created in response to WSTEM parents wanting a continuation of the school at a middle school level. We learned that the MSTEM had been started without even consulting WSTEM teachers, finding out the curriculum, finding out what makes the school special. The teachers had never even been introduced to each other. How can you start a new school modeled after another one without knowing anything about its success? There were big differences between the two schools, and many felt there was a significant drop in the academic rigor. MSTEM as well as USTEM were created as programs and not a charter, so there were limitations as to how this program could operate. How can we trust that you will truly look at what makes WSTEM different and special? You haven't in the past. It's not about STEM subjects. Can I say that again? This is nothing to do with STEM. There is so much that makes WSTEM absolutely amazing, unparalleled. Learning is so cool to these kids. I've never seen anything like it. Please, if you must close the school, at least find out what the secret ingredients to the recipe is at WSTEM before attempting to create it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chastity Vermeyer. I am a mom of 2 Wilson Elementary students, and I'd like to discuss an overlooked aspect in recent discussions on district charters. That is the burdensome challenge of housing 2 schools in one building. WSTEM families are my good friends and neighbors. WSTEM students play at my house, so it's tremendously difficult to speak against the problematic system or the shared building model used for Wilson WSTEM without worrying about offending my friends. Tonight, I'm speaking against the shared building model, not the charter itself. I'm so sorry. If you vote to maintain a district charter of any type, please do not continue the shared building model. Because of differences in fundraising and curricular approach, WSTEM students have more opportunities than other students in our district. But because we are housed together, these differences are especially pronounced to Wilson students. Several years ago, this resulted in playground arguments or Wilson students observing activities in their own building that they could not partake in. I understand that it's unrealistic to expect that things are always equal or fair. However, over time, consistently experiencing different opportunities than others within your own school can have a negative impact on students' sense of belonging and importance. Since 2021, a parent-led effort to fundraise and plan parallel experiences for Wilson students has improved this dynamic between the two schools. It has made the difference less obvious to students and families, but it is a huge effort made by very active and dedicated parents. Parents shouldn't have to shoulder this level of fundraising and planning so their kids feel equally valued at school. It is exhausting and it is not sustainable. The extra load required of both Wilson and WSTEM volunteers, like coordinating use of space and facilitating communication between the schools, can make volunteering at school complicated and undesirable. Having two schools in one building also splits the attention of the principal to the detriment of both schools and staff. Both Wilson and WSTEM deserve the full undivided attention of their own administrator. While my family's experiences have been largely positive, the culture that is created, even inadvertently so, by a shared building model is problematic. We are inherently set up for comparison by both within our building and reputation, where one school may be perceived as superior and students may feel more or less valued because of different curricular opportunities. Critically, the success of this model hinges on how committed parents are to directly addressing the differences in the building.
30
There are
seconds.
positive aspects, but sharing a building requires an unfair amount of energy, time, and money from families in both schools and shouldn't continue. Separate but equal isn't going to work long-term. We can have specialty schools as a district without the unfair burden brought on by housing schools together. Thank you.
Hello, I'm a fifth grader at WSTEM, and my dad is the Cub Master for Pack 148, the Wilson STEM Scout Pack. My mom is on the CIC and the Green Team. So you could say we're involved in the community. But if WSTEM or MSTEM gets closed, that would not help the community of the Wauwatosa School District, but instead hurt it. And you just can't fit all the fun integrated lessons that STEM teaches in 1 hour. We had our spooky lab day on Friday, and that took all morning, not 1 hour. I mean, not every kid gets to have the same experience as we do. So we should give it as an option for kids. And if they don't want it, they don't have to have it. Because I've met a lot of kids who love their school and wouldn't want to switch to STEM. But if we get rid of it, we're not doing anything to help the district. With our 30% higher math scores than district average and our 20% higher reading score than the district average, we should celebrate STEM and not get rid of it. Thank you for your time.
For just a second, how much time do we have left? Okay, we have 15 minutes.
Standing up a successful program like you've done is not an easy thing to do, and those school systems should be congratulated for the success of the STEM program. It should be expanded, not ended. I've had a very long technical career. I'm well past retirement age and still working. And one of our problems is not finding enough technical people to fill our positions. We need more STEM education, more people, and there are plenty of positions out there for students that successfully get through a STEM program. My grandson is a member of a STEM program at TOSA here. He has a mind that is perfect for this type of program. From the time he was a toddler, he wanted to know how things work. And I recognize in him an ability to excel in a program like STEM. So I ask that this program be expanded, not ended.
I would like to share some memories from STEM. I learned my spelling words playing cherry pie in native class, and I learned to listen to everyone's ideas at our engineering teams. In these engineering teams, I have developed leadership skills and critical thinking skills. The teachers and staff make sure we feel safe at all times and that the learning is fun. They strive to make sure that STEM is the best it can be, and I have witnessed this. How this school has impacted me and my classmates. STEM has helped me like math and excel in reading and become a good role model. These are some of the characteristics of STEM that make it such a great school. Shutting it down would be going backwards and a big loss to our community and future district. Thank you for your time.
I'm going to take one more comment in the room, pick a few online, and then I'll come back and take as many as I can take in the room.
Thank you for your time tonight. My name's Jill. I'm the mother of a fifth grade WSTEM student who just spoke. I and WSTEM want a diverse, high performing program where parents team with and support the teachers in their freedom to design, which results in great levels of learning and happy students who build a love of learning. There must be some commonality with the district in these goals. Addressing the DAP current concerns regarding uniqueness, WSTEM is unique in its integrative learning, child-guided system with dual classrooms and engineering groups. There is no way to measure how that builds the character of the older and the trust of the younger, and how that experience guides new learners into becoming caring leaders, which is beautiful to observe. WSTEM has put into practice their success and most certainly can be learned from and applied throughout the district. If reprogramming is necessary, it is my opinion that that path is totally achievable, but please allow time to do so. Problem solving is our jam. We can apply it to our own growth. The charter is already set up to review periodically. There is no need to include phrasing to predict an end. Addressing diversity, the WSTEM community is full of people hungry for diversity, and we are eager to work with you on building that. The ugly lawsuit does not represent me or my understanding of the school's intentions. This controversy was never necessary. We have always been a partner for the district. You could achieve more if you are able to recognize your allies. There are ways to change the lottery to make it more accessible. The partnership could be so successful with even more parents continuing to support the growing program envisioned by the DAP. To initiate STEM for all by killing a working program is backward, counterproductive, and shows misguided judgment. Look again, step back, repath your future. Rebuild the partnerships. Keep this parent support. Really work to support the teachers who have proven themselves successful. I and others are so grateful for the teachers. This act of appreciation enriches the program. Please don't discount those meaningful exchanges between the teachers, students, and families. The success of the students, both in academics and in character growth, in my opinion, is made possible by the trust and mutual support throughout the system.
30 seconds.
Rigidity and crushing blows like closing local and loved STEM programs rip away that sense of community that has been and can continue to be built. Again, there is no single kid served by closing this program, but so many benefit now from and could benefit from its persistence in the future, both within WSTEM and throughout the district. Please vote to continue WSTEM with no verbiage to end it. It would serve to start to rebuild my trust in the leadership of the district. I do not believe I am alone in this sentiment. Thank you.
I'm going to take the top two comments that are available online. We go to Andres first, and then Anna.
Andres, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Andres Romero, and I want to talk about the future of WSTEM. First of all, I am all in favor of STEM for all, and I want for all kids to have access to STEM classes. Well, we have specialized schools in STEM like WSTEM, USTEM, and MSTEM. However, what I don't understand is why do we need to make the decision of closing one of the greatest schools in the district under the assumption that the STEM for All program is going to be successful. Things can happen. There may be a learning curve, and things in real life can happen. Even top 100 Fortune companies in the world with the best teams struggle to implement great programs and great projects. However, my point is that we don't have to make that decision today. We can make that decision when we have all the information, 3 years from today, when the WSTEM contract is up for review. We want to be smart, have all the information in our hands to make a smart decision, and don't take a decision based on assumption and a good faith of a program. This is why I asked the school board to ask the school district and the lawyers that if the contract is renewed, we ask the lawyers to write the contract in a way that allows the school to continue, to close, or to phase out. We want, and I'm sure every successful businessman and business wants to have all the cards in their hand, all the data, all the facts when the time comes to make a decision. We don't know what's going to happen with STEM for all. Let's make that decision when we have all the cards and all the data in our hands. Second, I heard that we need to make this contract final and that this should be defined in the contract renewal so that there is transparency and that new families know that the school is going to close. I don't think that is transparency. And we could do that better as we all are. Future families won't know that the contract of the charter school is written or how it's written. If we want transparency, we need to ask the school district that in the next lottery, when a parent sign up his kids, the first thing they should read is, the WSTEM school is one of the best schools in the district. However, you need to understand that the school may not continue after year 2030, depending on how the STEM for All program goes. If you choose to enroll your kid, please make sure you understand this. Finally, with all the respect, I heard that we don't want to maintain silo schools. WSTEM is not a silo school. I really ask the school district to talk to whoever is putting the STEM for All program to partner with WSTEM, USTEM, MSTEM. If you really want to make this work, you need to partner with those schools that are really good. I think it will be really nice to see students that are taking optional classes to take a field trip to WSTEM with the specialized schools and have fun. Let's work together. Let's work together as all in Wauwatosa. We can do this together. We don't have to close schools. We don't have to make that decision today. We want all the data in our hands. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
All right, wonderful. Good evening. My name is Anna Turk, and I'm the parent of a WSTEM student and a Wilson student. I also volunteer as the WSTEM Governance Council president. On October 23rd, during a meeting with some WSTEM Governance Council members and Dr. Means, he proposed an edit to the recommendation that he will make to the school board tonight. I believe the edits that we discussed with Dr. Means are an improvement. However, I also continue to strongly believe that WSTEM should be given an opportunity to be an incubator for the district to enhance the STEM for All elementary curriculum. Furthermore, I still do not understand why the district is recommending to set a future closure date for WSTEM when we have not had the opportunity to work towards new expectations and demonstrate if we can or cannot meet them. I believe WSTEM should receive a traditional contract. The district chose not to conduct a 3-year review offered to them in our current contract and is instead asking us to end our current contract 1 year early to renew for a 5-year contract with non-standard language, indicating it would be a final contract for WSTEM. I am asking the board to follow standard contract language and give the school an opportunity to work toward the district's new STEM rubric expectations and to be an incubator for the district. This will allow our authorizer to conduct a 3-year review that is clear, calibrated, and reasonable. And then at that time, our authorizer can decide the path forward based on results. Results could show that we are innovating and have helped support STEM for All and can continue to be an incubator for the district. Or there could be a decision that a separate STEM charter school is no longer needed because other elementary schools have an innovating STEM curriculum and experiences for their students. It is then that discussions regarding a new instructional identity for the existing charter should begin. I ask you tonight not to vote to close WSTEM. Rather, use it as a strength use it to strengthen use it to strengthen STEM for All. I ask you to believe in the contract and regular ongoing feedback and evaluation of the effectiveness of our school through reviews outlined in the contract. I look forward to learning more tonight as I listen to your discussions and continuing collaborative discussions with district administration regarding WSTEM's future.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. My name is Paula Mason, and I am the mom to a senior kindergartner at WSTEM who is thriving in his new school environment. Many thanks to the amazing faculty and staff at WSTEM and Wilson that show up each day to give the kids their best. I'm here together with my husband to speak on behalf of what we believe is a truly special school that serves as an idea incubator for the district at the elementary level. What stands out to us is that our school district STEM programs have evolved into immersion models in their own right, with a flexibility for innovation that has been developed and nurtured over the years. How fortunate we are as a district to have a school like WSTEM as a part of our portfolio to demo out immersive project-based learning with multi-age groups of students. We just witnessed seeing this in action ourselves at Spooky Lab Day last Friday, and it was incredible to see how naturally the students worked in their multi-age learning groups and how helpful they were to each other in the learning process. As such, we believe our unique incubator school can truly benefit the community and the development of a STEM for All program that will also seek to be constantly innovating. We aren't in competition with each other, and the mutual benefits are really exciting. An immersion model together with an immersive STEM model together with STEM for All curriculum would be an incredible development for all students. It also seems that MSTEM itself is such an amazing natural continuation of this. If there is room for improvement in terms of sharing out and collaborating across schools, let's look at remedying those areas rather than scrapping truly incredible programs that took years of investment and that we know are making a big impact. In conclusion, we're asking that WSTEM be given a standard contract and to retain the core essence of our current model that has proven to be so successful, such as multi-age learning groups together with a deep emphasis on project learning. I do also want to say that we have small children to put to bed, so we are going to have to go shortly after this. But no, we are staying up late. We are watching the board meetings. We are involved. We want to be a part of this process. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 1 minute.
Okay, I will be brief. I want to talk more about the Longfellow STEM program. As the staff DEIA advocate from Lincoln last year, I am well aware that the current STEM programs are not equitable. In fact, it was one of the first things I brought up as an advocate. My 2 children have benefited from the Longfellow STEM program in such a remarkable way that I want what they have to be accessible to more kids. I have actually heard nothing, not one thing, about any attempts to make the program more equitable. We try to teach our kids to notice inequities and work to right them, not run away from them. To close the Longfellow program without trying to find ways to make it more equitable is very disappointing. I really believe that if the board and district really knew what the MSTEM program entailed, the district would do everything it takes to keep it and find ways to make it more equitable. Longfellow stands out in the state at future city and contract competitions every year. I would encourage you to take some more time and do your due diligence for our kids and our teachers and look into what these STEM programs really are all about. Thank you. Thank you for letting me go.
We have expended our 30 minutes on public comment. Thank you all.
You move to expand it.
Seeing no motion to extend public comment, I'm going to move us forward from the consent agenda to our next item.
Consent agenda.
Our public comments to the consent agenda. Are there any items in the consent agenda which board members would like to remove for separate discussion and action? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
It is recommended that the school board approve the consent agenda, and I so move.
May I have a second? Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Dr. Hoig. Yes. Mr. Wadier,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes.
Ms. Heimer-Walland,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger.
Yes, the consent agenda passes. We are going to be moving into a number of action items as a board. A lot of these items we have spent a substantial amount of time over the last year and more discussing. The board's had an opportunity both in our retreat in September through a great deal of feedback from beginning really with the strategic planning process that we're into year 2 on, to include work done by the task force, to include feedback taken in a variety of different opportunities and sessions, and a lot of different areas of focus that will move us forward in our strategic plan. So thank you to my colleagues on the board who have been digging in. Thank you to the community who is here tonight and who has provided a lot of feedback to us for us to grapple with as we determine the future direction on several different items. We will move into finance and operations. And we will begin with the monthly financial report. Mr. Drucker.
So at the second board meeting of each month, we go through the financials of where we are for the year as of the end of the last month. So today we're reviewing our September financials. Last month we reviewed August financials. For the board, there was actually for the board and community, there was a PowerPoint, a memo, and then for the board, there was also a presentation, a video. I got good feedback about that last time. So, and that's part of our continued transparency as well. If you haven't had a chance to watch the video yet, I'm going to walk through some of the slides. This presentation is slightly different than last month in that I'm comparing month over month now. So how things looked in August compared to how they look in September. In August, we just looked at August. So happy to get your feedback on methodology here too. So the two areas that we're continuing to watch, and these are the same as last month, on the revenue side are our state sources, and our expense side is our purchase services. And I really want to emphasize the purpose of these monthly financial reports is there are likely often going to be things that we keep an eye on. I think that's part of transparency is pointing out where we have kind of yield signs, but it isn't necessarily something that we need to be highly concerned about right now. It's really, hey, are we on top of these things, and what are we doing to adjust along the way so that we aren't surprised or don't come in over budget at the end of the year. So this is a high-level revenue summary. Again, you'll probably start getting used to these sort of speedometers. Here you can see August on the top, September on the bottom, and I'm just showing you how the speedometers kind of move in time month over month. Again, we won't see real movement on our revenue speedometers until December when we receive some equalized aid money. Until that time, we're really this is the time of year where we are essentially spending on payroll, on items without having any revenue. So it's sort of that lean time of year for us. I like to think of it as if you own an outdoor water park in the Dells, you're kind of getting all your money in the summer and then you're spending throughout the year. School districts are sort of like that. There's certain times of the year we get money and we have more in the bank, and other times we have less in the bank because money doesn't come like paychecks do for us every month. This is just another picture. Here I'm showing you just the sort of gradual increase month over month in our overall revenue. And as I identified, our state revenue is a spot we're keeping our eye on. I took a look at this, and this is really a function of how the administration and board shrewdly set up our 2018 referendum payments. We are essentially minimizing our lost equalized aid by loading our debt payments every other year instead of every year. So we are going to see variations in our state income every year because of that. So It's highlighted as something that stands out, but it's also something that we're anticipating. We will start catching up in this area once we start getting our aid payments in December. So I always think the expense side is a little more fun. Revenues are fairly certain from the state, and expenses are what I always feel like we really need to track. And again, here you can see the change month over month. Salaries and benefits, I'll use as an example. At the end of August, we had only paid our teachers one payroll through that point. So, fairly low in terms of overall salary and benefit expenses. At under 6%. And then you can see as of end of September, we're at 13.66%, which is just under our projection where we would anticipate to be in September of 13.87%. Overall, we are tracking ahead. So at the end of September, we had spent 15.51% of our overall budget. And we were anticipating or projecting about 13.93%. And that's where I've got my eye on purchase services, which I'll show you here. Well, this is just another view of total expenditures again. But then here's our view of salaries, benefits, and purchase services. So if you looked back to the September presentation that showed August, that would be the graphic on the left-hand side. We were ever so slightly above in salaries at that time. And now you can see we're ever so slightly below in salaries. Again, the key I'm looking for are those red and blue lines close together? Is the projection close to the actual? And that's where we can see purchase services standing out a little less than it was last month, but still standing out. And as I reported last month as well, the reason for that is in particular our areas of buildings and grounds, technology, and academic performance have essentially front-end loaded their expenditures. So buying software, textbooks, things like that early in the year so that we have them for the whole year. And we anticipate, or having talked to those groups, they all know what their budget is. No one has overspent yet, but we're going to see that trend decline for them over the next few months. So for those of us that like numbers, on the top is what we saw in August as far as where we were anticipating variances. The bottom is where we are in September, and I just sort of highlighted with some red flags and green flags where I've particularly got my eye on, but those are the things I already mentioned. That's the monthly financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Ecker. One comment I wanted to note for the community who's both in the room and watching online today, we just passed as a board approval as well for CISA 5 to begin reviewing on a month-to-month basis. We have an audit at the end of every year that is currently in process. But we have gone the extra step of having an external monthly review. And as of this evening, the board has now signed off on the agreement with CISA 5, CISA 6?
CISA 5.
CISA 5 to provide that financial support.
Yep, and the Finance Committee actually got an update from Mike Poltis, the Director of Business for CISA 5. He's the one spearheading that project at our Finance Committee meeting.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Mr. Meyer.
So on the agreement with CISA 5, and we discussed this in the Finance Committee meeting, and I confess to have missed it in my review of the consent agenda. Is there some statement of scope or definition to what the CISA 5 work is? I know we're like one of a kind, first one ever, and concepts of scope evolve. There we have it. Okay. So that is available. All right. I just wanted to speak to that.
Yeah, I can speak to it.
The community knows.
I don't have it right in front of me.
Right.
But I know it's part of the documentation. Generally, their scope is they're going to validate our monthly financials via a different methodology. In particular, salaries and benefits, since that's where 80% of our costs go.
Right. Okay. So that will be available for people to see. They want to know what this audit is, et cetera, that there it is. They can see.
Exactly.
Now, scope as these things go may evolve as you find or don't find things. And to me, that would be fine.
Yeah, so the contract gave us essentially a daily rate,
Yeah.
which we can modify as needed.
Okay, well, thank you.
Mr. Ecker, your memo from 10/21, September financial performance, there's just one line at the bottom that mentioned a new wrinkle will be thrown into our benefits projection in the next 2 months as we begin to implement our health insurance premium shares for employees. It's something for us to keep a close eye on. I was just wondering if you could expand on that.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. October is the first month that we have began taking premium payments from employees. So that is going to, the non-technical term is mess with the algorithm. But it's going to change the algorithm relative to projections for benefits. So I'm going to have to revise the algorithm to account for that in October, November. And so that's why I'm pointing that out is I think it might take 2 months to kind of settle in with where the new normal is.
You're not concerned with where?
No, I'm not concerned. Having worked with HR, we went through every employee, exactly know who's taking single insurance, who's taking health insurance, who's not taking insurance, and aligned our budget to that.
Thank you.
Could you expand on what purchase services and non-capped objects are and why, since October, non-capped objects have received a red flag?
Yeah. So purchase services would be, think of anything that we're paying sort of an outside contractor to do. So it could be our district, it's utilities, busing, if you hire an electrician, CISA is actually a outside contract. So kind of anything you hire from someone from the outside to do. Non-capital objects, those essentially are consumable materials. So in large part, they're textbooks, they're paper, anything kind of under about $1,000 is what is called a non-capital object. Both of those are trending ahead because we have purposely bought things early this year to provide for students,
So
as
that's
opposed to
the
waiting.
front loading.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Mr. Warren?
So I just want to refer back to the CISA 5 agreement. I see was a hot link in the agenda that I missed. So this will be ongoing monitoring primarily of payroll implications for the whole year.
Correct.
So whether there was a mistake in the past and whether there wasn't, there is now basically a second set of eyes on our calculations. And we will decide at the end of the year whether we want to keep doing that or not. But for now, to provide confidence and reassurance to the community, there will be an independent set of eyes following the payroll related calculations, which is the majority of our budget, really, right? Okay. Thank you.
And it's actually a third set of eyes.
Yes.
So we now have the finance director also verifying things each month and reporting to the finance committee.
Any final questions from them? Thank you, Mr. Ecker, for the review and update. And again, for the community, there's a video that's available online that could also be reviewed as well. I want to move us into point number B underneath strategic goal 6 operations, action to approve certification of tax levy for the 2024-2025 school year.
It is recommended that the school board approve certification of the tax levy for the 2024 and 2025, and I so move.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Any board discussion on this item? Seeing none, Ms. Summers, please call roll.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Dr. Hoik. Yes. Mr. Wadier,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes.
Ms. Hammer Rolland,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger.
Yes. And the levy certification of the tax levy passes. The next is.
I think if it's okay, we talked about this at the budget hearing, but I think it's worth noting that this is a $0 increase to the tax levy. And that's the first time that we've had either a decrease or no increase since 2020, 2021. And this is in large part due to, again, the way that debt was structured in 2018, giving us some flexibility with our debt levy and allowing us in some years to provide relief for residents.
Next is action to approve the 2024-25 budget. Sorry.
It is recommended that the school board approve the 24-25 budget, and I so move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Board discussion or comment on this item? As a reminder for the community, we adopt the initial budget in June of every year. And then once we get final numbers in from the state of Wisconsin, they're all certified, we do then a second round of review and receive any updates on the budget. And that is what we are adopting this evening.
When was the deadline in which we have to do this by, Dr. Jessup?
I believe that is November 1st on an annual basis that it must be reviewed and
Thank you. The only item I'd add is if there's any material changes to the budget, I will bring those forward to the board. This we're adopting as what we call the original budget. And if we have changes that then I'd be asking the board to adopt a revised budget.
Mr. Ecker, I'm putting you a bit on the spot here, but there was a report that we needed to make some adjustments to our budget and make some shifts in order to make sure that we were kind of hitting our budget. Can you do a quick update to the community, what you shared 2 weeks ago of how the district worked to close the budget gap?
I think I heard the question. So how we went from, there was a time where we were projecting a $4 million kind of shortfall. We closed that gap to roughly 11.3 million, and now it's about really 9.3-ish million. So the timeline of that was when I got here, we discovered, I discovered that we had a budget shortfall greater than what the had been presented to the board at the preliminary budget. The significant modifications we made to primarily health insurance brought that down significantly. We've also left a few job openings unfilled, in particular some ones that we really couldn't find anybody for. I'm trying, if anyone remembers the other significant items, I'm happy to hear them.
Key for me as a board member is we closed the budget gap by some pretty quick decisions that were made by the administrative team.
We communicated that we would have a shortfall and would utilize $9.3 million in fund balance, and that's what we're doing. We're not going above that, which will then allow us to rebuild our fund balance in a quicker amount of time.
Correct.
And to clarify from another one of your memos, we are adopting this. This budget does not contain any sort of contingency or emergency account. The district and board and you will not have the flexibility to say yes to any unbudgeted items. So
Yeah,
we are
thank you.
going to be very disciplined on this budget.
Yeah, we have to be.
Mr. Meyer?
So per that question, does that affect the definition of material change or not?
Does what?
The idea that there's no, as Mr. Wadier said, no cushion in there. Material change, some would say it's an exact science and some would say that's not an exact science. It's kind of depends on what it is sometimes, but it does not mean you will report all changes to us. because not all will be material.
In my mind, if we see a increase or decrease in revenue projection or an increase or decrease in expense projection, I'd bring that to the board. What I consider not a material change is moving money, say, within West High School from the science department to the social studies department. That has a net zero impact.
Any other questions before the board, before we vote? Please call the roll.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Dr. Hoyt,
Yes.
Mr. Wadier,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes.
Ms. Hammer Wallen,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
No.
Dr. Jessica Banger.
Yes. And the budget has passed. Thank you. The next item is action to approve long-range facilities plan.
A long-range facilities plan was presented to the board in June. It was reviewed again earlier this month, October 14th. The goal of presenting this long-range plan to the board this evening is for you to have a foundational document that the board can review. I would recommend on a semi-annual basis where you check it on November and then again in May of each year. That then creates a document and a planning document that allows the board and the community to know what is your intentions. I think one of the criticisms of the 2018 referendum is that people did not expect that we would come back and have more conversations around facility needs 6 years later. Well, if there was a long-range facilities plan of some sort, we would have known and we could project what the needs are. So from a strategic standpoint, we're asking you to adopt this plan this evening. That doesn't mean that that plan never changes, a living document. That and again, I would say on a semi-annual basis, the board reviews the plan and you may make changes to it, but unless you have a foundation, the community, the board isn't very stable in terms of what we're trying to accomplish with the maintenance of our facilities long-term.
Procedural. It is recommended that the school board approve the long-range facilities plan, and I so move.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Opportunity for board question and discussions.
So to that review process, was that something that will come through the finance committee?
It would start there, and then they would bring it, just like Mr. Ecker brought, he brings other items to you, be it the annual audit or the monthly updates. It'll start with the finance and resource committee, and then it'll eventually come to.
Perfect. I just want to
Yes.
community members to know what that will look like as far as process.
The facilities plan is something that the community has asked for. Certainly the board, I think it was last February, made this request.
You demanded it.
And a lot of work was put into place to make sure that this was delivered upon. And this, as Dr. Means articulated, as a living document. So this provides us a roadmap for generations of how to address the needs of Wauwatosa schools. I'm going to go over here to Ben and then Jason.
I'm curious, we've sort of described the facilities plan as a roadmap. How do we use that roadmap and translate it into exactly what we'll be addressing when and how much that'll cost? Is that already in the plan, or is that something that is developed outside of it?
In terms of the actual, what can be accomplished, some of that's going to be dependent on how much the community is willing to invest. So a portion of it is going to be discussed next week, Tuesday, in this community during the November 5th election. The secondary school component of things is something that needs to continue to be discussed. So it's a roadmap that is tentative in that the community ultimately will have to weigh in terms of what type of investment it wants to make long term.
Thank you.
So this plan is very comprehensive. 131 pages worth of comprehensive. Or I guess my question is, do we have a process in place of effectively tracking or communicating changes to this document without having to really get into the weeds on it for not just the board, but for the general public?
It's a great question, Ms. Wardier. From a governance standpoint, the process starts by you adopting the plan. Because when you adopt the plan, then it starts a cycle where it's reviewed on a semi-annual basis. And if there are any changes by the governing board, it is captured in the minutes of a board meeting. Right now, there isn't any plan that is adopted formally by the board. So it changes depending on who's in certain positions, who pays attention to it, who doesn't. When you have a policy governance board, these are the types of documents that guide your work. And so this is something that's been absent. People like Mr. Ecker and I, we covet to have documents like this, because then there's a foundation that regardless of who's on the board, who's in certain seats, the community knows this is the direction that we're trying to move in as it pertains to the investment of our facilities. So the quick answer to your question is, once you adopt it, there's a foundation. And if there are changes, those changes are documented during your semi-annual review of the document.
Okay, so assuming it passes, that when we get to the semi-annual review, the case would be where we'd be presented with more or less an executive summary of here's all the things that have changed. If you want to go and look at the line item changes, there would be a document provided showing the exact strikeouts, additions.
We will
complete transparency to the community.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
On an annual basis, typically what I do with the Director of Buildings and Grounds is also bring to the board as part of the budgeting process, which projects we're going to be able to fund via the annual budget. So that's another sort of check and balance.
And that's why I'm suggesting semi-annual. There should be one in November and then again in May, right before that preliminary budget is presented to the board.
Seeing no other board questions or comments. I know we've spent a lot of time with this over the past several weeks. Please call the roll.
Mr. Morris, Yes. Dr. Hoig,
Yes.
Mr. Wadier,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes.
Ms. Hammer Roland,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger.
Yes. We've adopted the long-range facilities plan. Thank you all. We are now going to adjourn into closed executive session. The board will be stepping out of the room for approximately 30 minutes. And folks are welcome to stay if you're in the gallery. It is 7:09 PM. May I have a motion to adjourn into executive closed session?
It is recommended that the school board adjourn into a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85, parens 1, parens G, for the purposes of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. Specifically, to confer with legal counsel regarding threatened litigation related to the Wauwatosa STEM Charter School, and I so move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Summerall. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Mr. Morris, Yes. Dr. Hoig,
Yes.
Mr. Wadier,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes.
Ms. Hammer Roland,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger.
Yes. And we will be back in about 30 minutes. We are next back. We have officially reconvened into open session. It's 8:06 PM. Strategic goal 1 is our next item, academic performance. First is action to approve new secondary school courses.
It is recommended that the school board approve the new secondary school courses, and I so move.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
We did that in closed session. We have to come back into open session.
Just for dotting the i's, cross the t's, have you announced we are reconvened in open session now? So we didn't actually become open session in there, we were open session in here, you know what I'm saying, just.
I'm not following.
Okay, we did not conduct any open session business in room A. We voted to leave closed session And our first open session, business and discussion is now being done in this room.
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
For my colleagues on the board, we have spent a great deal of time over the last several years identifying really at the point of hire of Dr. Means and then him bringing on a new team of how do we drive academic outcomes and achievement and setting higher expectations for our district in terms of what we are providing to our learners, expectations for what we are expecting from our learners in terms of outcomes and academic achievement, a strategic plan, the board North Star, and lots of things that are guiding our work. So I wanted to reground us in those items as we're thinking about all of our many decisions tonight around academic items. With these first new courses and for secondary education, any board questions or comments on these items? We discussed them at length 2 weeks ago.
Just a real quick question. So I had a sixth grader last year and was just not sure where in the schedule this would fit because so much of what they do is mandatory. So can you just talk about what would be the choices or what are the alternatives that they could take?
Yeah, there has been long conversation about the necessity of having Spanish be a mandatory class. It's not required by the state of Wisconsin to be a mandatory class. And so the proposal that will actually come forward with the course guides next month would be to have Spanish be an optional elective at sixth grade. And then and that would run opposite of physical education, which it currently does. And then the courses that are on the table for approval this evening would follow that same suit. They would be run opposite of physical education.
Okay. Is Project Lead the Way, is that also one of those classes that is opposite of?
So we also at sixth grade have a wheel because of the mandatory art and music requirements. And so Project Lead the Way is part of that wheel that we cycle students through for art, Project Lead the Way, and adolescent studies.
Okay. And Dr. Marble, isn't it true, just going on with what Dr. Hoyt is asking, and we're going to talk about this later, but the JK6 model is actually a benefit to the district because we still have mandatory courses we have to offer the sixth graders, which makes the premise of her question more difficult for us to present to sixth graders as electives. Is that accurate?
Yes, because sixth grade is still considered elementary and statutorily they are required to have art, music, and physical education as part of their curricular offerings.
Any other board comments or questions on these items? My singular comment is I continue to be impressed by some of the creative and high expectation courses that we're seeing. Adding an additional AP course, I think is a really nice additional component to the high school curriculum. And I think there's some really creative things that are being produced at the middle school level that will be of interest to students as well. If there's nothing else, I'm going to ask. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Mr. Morris, Yes. Dr. Hoyt,
Yes.
Mr. Wadier,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes.
Ms. Emerald Rowland,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger.
Yes. And the secondary school course options pass. Next is action to create a new elementary STEM elective, starting with the 2025-2026.
It is recommended that the school board approve the creation of a new elementary STEM elective starting with the 2025-2026 school year, and I so move.
Thank you. May I have a second? Second. Mr. Water, any board comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Mr. Morris, Yes. Dr. Hoyt. Yes. Mr. Wadier,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes.
Ms. Emerald Rowland,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger.
Yes. And that recommendation for the STEM elective for elementary is approved. Next is action to retire elementary Spanish at the end of the 24-25 school year.
It is recommended that the school board approve the retirement of elementary Spanish at the end of the 24-25 school year, and I so move.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Morse, any comments or questions on this? Yes.
About this. If elementary Spanish retires, then their students with their Spanish, how would they get their experience at a younger age? Like for school, like colleges and stuff. Mhm. With the world language.
The question is, if we are not offering elementary Spanish, how would they get the learning opportunities that are for world language?
It's usual and customary for students in most school districts to start world language instruction in sixth grade. And so you just heard Dr. Marvel mention the fact that we're looking at making that a requirement for sixth grade students. And the other component that we could look at is working through some type of enrichment opportunity that's offered through the recreation department. But the concept, we are rare. The Wauwatosa School District offering Spanish at the elementary school level is not usual and customary. That is not the platform that young people need to have in order to go on a trajectory where they're taking Spanish 4, Spanish 5 at the high school level. So we believe that we can introduce Spanish instruction at the sixth grade level and students will still be well positioned.
Point of clarity, I just want to reconfirm that we are looking to, currently Spanish is mandatory at sixth grade. We are looking to make that an elective. Statutorily, students have to have access to a world language starting in seventh grade, and that's typically how most school districts operate.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, as far as I'm aware, that time that was at this point, or that is at this point, currently allocated for Spanish. Would that be used for the STEM?
Yes.
Okay.
It would just STEM for all would replace Spanish.
All right.
And that's the 60-minute preparation period that classroom teachers receive.
This isn't so much a question, but I just want to make a comment because, we've gotten some feedback from members of our community that really feel strongly and passionately about the importance of Spanish. Or really, it's just, I think it's more like exposure to multiculturalism. And I am a huge advocate of that. If I have one sort of like regret in my overall education, it's that I am not bilingual and I could do so much if I were bilingual. So I actually did a little bit of research just because I wanted to better understand, we've seen the results of our audit, which suggests that our students are not learning a second language at a better rate, higher rate than other students, despite our early exposure to that language. So I just wanted to look and see, does non-immersive Spanish, which is what we're doing, or world language exposure lead to increased proficiency in childhood? And it doesn't. So for me, that felt very important that research suggests that you can be exposed to a second language at a later date in childhood, early adolescence, even adulthood, and you can still be proficient in that language, even if you get that later exposure. So, for me, that feels like it's a tough trade-off. I would love if we had a more immersive Spanish program, but I don't think we have the funding or resources for such a thing right now.
So I just want to follow up on that and ask if, I know I didn't prepare you for this, but a quick high-level overview of ways that our students are getting that multicultural experience, even if they were not to have those 20 minutes Spanish.
Yeah, our social studies curriculum, we're working on revamping that, and that there are different statutes that we have to abide by also to do that multicultural. I would also say at the elementary level in particular, our building principals with their school growth plans are really cognizant of making sure that there's representation and how are they exposing students at the building level to the different backgrounds and ethnicities that make up the school walls. So that is ever present.
Thank you. And this is challenging, but I also have experienced that it's really the immersion that would bring that about. And so, as I once mentioned before, this does not close the chapter, the idea of more language proficiency in our district down the road, but seems like an important step right now in order to sort of look at and then figure out what's next.
Seeing no other questions for the board, Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Dr. Hoik. Yes. Mr. Wadier,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes.
Ms. Hammer Walland,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
No.
Dr. Jessup Banger.
Yes. And that item on the elementary Spanish being sunset at the conclusion of this year passes. Next up is action to approve the final contract for WSTEM Charter School to conclude in the 29-30 school year with the commitment to explore and propose a new charter school concept, not in conflict with district instructional programming by the conclusion of the 27-28 school year for school board action. A note that there is a substantive adjustment from what the board was presented, and Dr. Means, I'll ask you to run through that momentarily. Could I have a motion before that begins?
It is recommended that the school board approve the final contract for WSTEM Charter School to conclude in the 2029-2030 school year with a commitment to explore and propose a new charter school concept not in conflict with district instructional programming by the conclusion of the 2027-2028 school year for the school board action, and I so move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. My understanding is that the district administration has continued into conversations with the WSTEM governance group, and that there is a concept of an adjustment that is being proposed to the board that would still result in this being the final 5-year contract for a STEM program, Wauwatosa STEM program, but would reopen conversation in the 27-28 school year, where there would be an opportunity to reimagine what the charter might focus on. Certainly one of the things I heard tonight is a desire to not lose the key things that STEM does and to continue to grow those. And a couple comments that I've certainly heard is that the success of the STEM program isn't per se about STEM. The success of the program has often been about other key components of the culture that the school that has been created. So I would leave it at that. And Dr. Means, anything else that you can share about specifics of what we're considering here this evening?
After the October 14th board meeting, there was considerable feedback received from the WSTEM community and requests to meet first with the Division of Academic Performance from WSTEM, which we felt at that point was not appropriate. The Division of Academic Performance made their recommendation on the 14th. I did not feel that it was appropriate for them to then continue to have to justify what they presented on the 14th. There was then a request to meet with the board. And from a governance perspective, that would have been inappropriate because the board speaks as one body and you speak in a board meeting. And if you remember on the 14th, the board actually extended public comment. So you did hear from the WSTEM community. I extended myself to meet with the WSTEM governing board, and I did that last week. One of the things that the WSTEM governing board expressed to me was that the initial language that was presented on the 14th had a true final component to it, and that there was a fear that the lights would be going out. if the language that was presented would have a detrimental impact to WSTEM. In an effort to extend a level of diplomacy to WSTEM, in an effort to try to continue to collaborate, my thought was that as long as we can find a concept of a charter that is not in conflict with our instructional programming, and WSTEM, as it stands, is in conflict with what you've now approved, is in conflict with STEM for All. We believe that extending WSTEM's contract into perpetuity beyond the 29-30 school year would be in conflict with what we're trying to achieve and what we're trying to provide to every student in the district. It would dilute our resources from the Division of Academic Performance. And so I stand steadfast in the recommendation that this should be the final contract for WSTEM. Let me also state this for the record and very clearly. A good charter should work itself out of being a charter. A good charter should work itself into a position where it is an incubator. It is a place where we can discover if the instruction can be scaled to the entire district. And when we achieve that point, then it shouldn't be in existence anymore. That's the purpose and the service that a good charter provides. And when we find ourselves in a position 17 years after the creation of WSTEM, there isn't a need for us to continue a school. Let me also state this for the record. It's concerning when I hear members of the WSTEM community say it's not about the STEM, it's about the community. My job, first and foremost, is instruction. And if people are not grounded in the instructional foundation of a school, that is a deep concern for me. Now, if there are, what I would say to you very clearly, that there are many schools across this district that have strong school communities. It's insulting, frankly, for one school to say that our school community is so strong that we need to maintain, when I see other school communities that are just as strong in their community and rallying around their children and their families. So this proposal before you is to make sure that we're not extending a charter school that is in conflict instructionally with what we want to offer to all the children. I appreciate the invitation to Spooky Labs that was extended to us at the October 14th board meeting. I attended. I went to go see Spooky Labs last week, Friday. What was provided there is something that children at Madison should also have access to. What was provided there is something that kids at Roosevelt should have access to. And I don't believe it's fair. I've stated this before and I'll state it again. It's not fair that there's one group of children who are receiving that instruction. You've taken the bold step in giving our Division of Academic Performance the green light to start developing a curriculum that all of our children can have the same experience that the children at WSTEM had on Friday. But if you continue WSTEM beyond the 29-30 school year, you will dilute the ability of that fine academic team, the design team that's going to work hard. And I want to state this for the record, that will work extremely hard for anyone in this community that believes that we will not have a class, high quality STEM curriculum starting September of 2025. I am highly confident that we will have that in place, but it will be diluted if we have to try to have the duality of maintaining and supporting WSTEM and ensuring that all of our children have STEM for all. So that's the background, Dr. Jessup Anger, board members and community members around the modification to the recommendation here. I don't want the language of diplomacy to get confused with my number one goal. The number one goal is that we need to bring to a conclusion WSTEM with the 29-30 school year. But I'm not opposed to continuing to having the conversation If that conversation in terms of a charter concept is not in conflict with instructional programming in the district.
I want to open up opportunity for board comments and questions.
I'd like to thank the superintendent for his comment. And I would also urge the board to end the STEM charter. My question though is with the period of reconsideration during for the 2027-2028 school year, how would that charter simply be limited to a similar STEM concept, or could that be extended to any field of learning?
I think there's a lot of negotiating and a lot of discussions that need to take place. One of the components that the WSTEM charter asked is that we try to maintain some of the pillars that they believe has created the strong school that they have. But those pillars of instruction, multi-age learning, collaborative learning, project-based learning, experimental learning, those are things that can happen outside of a STEM instructional model. And that's represented in a lot of different instructional models. It's represented in Montessori. It's represented in a lot of different styles of instruction. So I think we have to find a way where people don't feel that they're losing something in this process, and that can become the next incubator for the district. Because again, the concept of a charter, if it's not being used in a way where certain kids are getting an experience and other kids are not, if you do the charter model well, you should work your way out of the charter. But the way that we're doing charter right now, we're creating a platform where some kids feel that they are less than, and some children are feeling greater than. We heard that tonight, right within within the actual building in which this is being housed, but that's also taking place district-wide. And I think we've heard a lot of passionate pleas for WSTEM. The job of the board, my job is to make sure that I'm taking a look at all the needs of all the children. Besides the 130 students who attend WSTEM, there's approximately 2,558 elementary school students who attend school in Wauwatosa. I have an obligation to make sure that those students have an excellent educational experience as well. I don't want to take anything away from the 130, but I have an obligation to make sure that the entire district has an outstanding educational experience. And so I appreciate the passion. What you're not going to hear in board meetings like this is that the families and the parents of the 2,558, they may not come to the board meetings. Tonight, we did hear some of them come to the board meeting. And what you heard them say tonight is, and that's hard. And so part of our job is to make sure that we're advocates for all of our families. And that's part of this recommendation.
So theoretically, this charter could be extended to even, let's say, like a Spanish immersion. The district determines that's a part of evolving the standards of instruction.
Our chief academic officer is a former Spanish teacher. And if you remember at the last meeting, she stated that the concept of a dual language charter is something that is appealing to us. And we believe, I'll go back to those pillars that I spoke to earlier. We believe that those pillars that the WSTEM community so cherish, that can be embedded in a dual language school.
Right.
And so that's why we're really excited about the possibility of what can we now create and incubate for the next generation of students in Wauwatosa. Now, I want to be very clear. Or, again, this was an extension of diplomacy and trying to work with people. That the second part of this recommendation doesn't have to be. There could be a motion placed on the table tonight to say just in WSTEM. So there may be some in the WSTEM community who say, well, I just want to maintain WSTEM. I think that's losing the forest for the trees. I think there's an opportunity, if people want to continue to try to find innovation, to find it. But you have to understand, and I'm placing myself in a vulnerable space because there are some in our community who would say we shouldn't have charter schools at all in Wauwatosa. That charter schools actually create division, and it divides us. And so trying to thread the needle here has been difficult the entire time. But I don't want to lose what I'm trying to implement and trying to express. We believe strongly, and when I say we, I mean our administrative team, that we do need to have a final contract with WSTEM because it creates inequities that we can't continue to ignore.
So to expand on that a little bit, and I appreciate the diplomacy that you've put in here since we last talked about it. Just so I'm clear, what and I've already heard a few of them, but what are some of the other unique things that forming a new charter? What are some of those things that can be done that the district couldn't necessarily do?
I think that would be premature. It would be premature for me to state it publicly tonight. As educational leaders, we have ideas, but we want to do it in collaboration with WSTEM if you approve the modified recommendation. But do we have ideas? Absolutely. And I think there are ways that we can honor the pillars that have been identified by WSTEM, but utilizing an instructional methodology that's not in conflict.
So then, and my second question is, does this recommendation include continuing the lottery throughout the remainder of the final contract, or is it that no additional would be accepted? I just want to make sure I'm clear.
We would work to develop contract language that would end WSTEM on June 30th, 2030. It would be no more.
But years up to that, from now until then,
it would stay. If we would honor WSTEM the same way that we're honoring USTEM.
Because we have a lottery, we have people clearly waiting and still part of it. So and also I've heard there could be
thank you. I didn't
parents that would want to leave the district, but we have other parents that may still want to take that jump and take that leap of faith that the district would put together something with a new charter. And I know we can't promise or anything about that, but the door is open for the possibility of a new charter with what you're recommending.
My recommendation, Jason, would be that we continue to accept families in the lottery, but be very transparent with them that WSTEM is ending the 29-30 school year, and then they make the decision on if they want to go to the school or not. Because I think the alternative is that if you just in the lottery, then the schools start to shrink and it will start to dissolve. And I think that's one of the main concerns.
Is that formal that the lottery will continue?
My recommendation would be that we continue the lottery, but be very transparent with whoever is accepted, that they will have to go back to their neighborhood schools at the end of the 29-30 school year.
Can I make a motion to formally vote on that?
You want to add that?
You want to add the lottery piece.
I want to add the lottery piece too. The lottery will continue. We're not just stopping taking new students in between now and then.
Is that what we made an agreement with USTEM? I thought with USTEM, we were ending the lottery after the school year.
We're ending, well, that's within their school. Or excuse, I'm sorry. I'm saying that because the vast majority of those folks at USTEM are USTEM attendance zone area kids. No, with USTEM, we said that we were ending the lottery.
But USTEM also is a district-wide lottery. It's not just Underwood.
So you're right. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we shouldn't do anything. We should not vote on anything for WSTEM that we haven't. That is, yes. We need to treat the two schools equally, in my opinion.
The uniqueness is that USTEM, they'll regenerate their own students where well, and I think that candidly, it's really interesting that you bring that up, Ms. Heimer-Rollin, because Mr. Meyer can speak to this. Approximately 70% of the students of the 130 students who go to WSTEM don't live in the Wilton attendance zone area. So the ability of USTEM to regenerate themselves and to repopulate themselves isn't as powerful with WSTEM because the vast majority of the students who are attending that charter school don't live in Wilson. The whole point of developing WSTEM was to regenerate and keep the building open. But I think you've received as a board, you've received some information from a community member that has been looking at the specialty schools that says it actually has a detrimental impact on neighborhood schools because it is drawing from other neighborhoods and then bringing down the attendance zones. I mean, for a prime example is Jefferson. There are a lot of children who live in the Jefferson attendance zone area that are attending specialty schools. It is having a detrimental impact to their neighborhood school to a certain degree. So that's well stated.
Yeah, I would just say it would be unfair to let WSTEM continue the lottery because USTEM families have younger siblings that would get preference in the lottery that WSTEM would then get, but they wouldn't.
Okay.
That seems like.
I want to answer Jason's question. You can choose to submit any amendment. What we would then do is that we would look for a second. We would discuss and the board would vote on it. So that is completely fair and reasonable, and it's fair and reasonable for any board member.
I would like to make a motion to add the language to continue the lottery.
Is there a second?
Second.
Board discussion on this item.
Yes, if I may.
I'm going to recognize Malik first. And I'll come back to you.
I ask that the board vote yes.
So just to be clear, this motion is to document the commitment the superintendent already made to continue the lottery at WSTEM. Because Dr. Means said he would continue the lottery at WSTEM with transparency. And this motion says you have to write that down, make it a board vote. You want to endorse that statement. He's making that statement as a management statement. Now we're going to endorse it at the board level as well.
And I know we're not agenda for this item yet. I love where Ms. Heimer-Rollin took this. I think we just need to keep that in mind as we get to 8F. So if there is an amendment to 8F, whatever we do for 8D, we should just make sure that we are consistent with 8F. And I know we're not agenda for that, but I just want to Ms. Summers say for the minutes.
Really?
Dr. Means, so I'm not expecting to have these numbers all in your head, but in general, if the JK to 6 model were to be approved, how does that then change? I mean, does that interact with the whole idea of keeping a lottery in terms of space? Do both the schools have the kind of space in them that would, during this drawdown that would still be okay, that there'd be enough room? Because also we're changing boundary areas. I feel like there's some possibilities that we can't end up with an overfilled building.
I mentioned to Dr. Hoyt, she in some questions she posed earlier, she asked a similar question. If you wanted to take a very binary approach to this, you would not accept any more lottery students because it will allow you to truly reset who lives in what neighborhood and what school that they need to attend. If you were legitimately trying to reset so you're ready to go for the 29-30 school year with the new attendance zone areas, you would just say, stop the lottery. If you are trying to be diplomatic and extend an olive branch to both WSTEM and USTEM, then you would accept this motion. So that's what's in front of you.
But so I get that in terms of the policy side. Do we run into any risk in terms of larger classrooms? Or is there enough space?
Classrooms.
I think you will not have a true, it goes back to the community member who sent you that data late last week. You'll continue to have imbalanced classrooms in that you're splitting classes and creating low class sizes for children who technically don't live in those attendance zone areas. That's what you would be doing if you continued the lottery. Again, one of the schools, 70% of the children don't live in the Wilson attendance zone. They don't live there. They're coming from other places. And so that is, so we would then be filling that charter school. We have, Dr. Marble, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's 6 FTEs that are committed to WSTEM. So you do the math of the 130, we've committed 6 FTEs or 6 teachers. 70% of those children don't live in the Wilson attendance zone area.
And we don't know for sure that those spaces would fill.
Right.
So we might be committing to very small classes potentially by inscribing this in our decision. I mean, we can't be sure that this is going to convince people to be confident in sending their.
We don't know for sure.
That people would go and just be there for 3 years. So it's a little bit of a numbers game in that sense, because that's one thing, we can't really be sure that will have enough people that we then might have potentially rooms of 10 or something that we've committed to, and there's no way to predict that. Yeah, it's unknown territory.
So part of why I bring this up is because over the last several meetings, I've heard about the quality of the education there and the quality of the teachers. And my thought behind this and continuing this is from the perspective of trying to retain high value, high quality educators. And that if they know more students are coming in, and maybe there's a little bit more of a structure that's going to be there for at least a few years, that gives the board and district time to figure out all the other things that we need to do without running the risk, or with running less risk of a high quality educator leaving for a more stable position. That's my thought.
I would respect, I've heard that argument. I don't understand it. It actually has no substance. Let me tell you why. So WSTEM is one of the few elementary-based STEM schools I know of nationally. It is rare to have a STEM elementary school. You just approved a STEM elective for the entire district, where we're going to need 6 teachers to do that work. If I'm a teacher of the elementary child that loves STEM, this is the district to be in. This is the district you want to be in, because you're not going to find that opportunity anywhere else. Now, if the argument is, but I like WSTEM as a school community, and I want to teach in that school community, that's a different argument. But if the argument is you want to teach STEM to elementary school students, I dare anyone to show me another school district that is offering STEM for all for elementary school students. It's not happening. And so this is the district that they would, if you are truly a lover and a true devoted instructor of elementary STEM instruction, you want to be in Wauwatosa. Ms. Zelazowski is going to start posting for positions, looking for STEM-based instructors who will teach that. That's all they will teach. That is a unique space. So I respectfully reject the argument that we're going to lose these teachers. Actually, this is a hub for that work. If people want to just retain the charter, that's what I hear. If there's a pursuit to retain the charter, that's a different conversation. And I think that's where the board has to come to grips with, excuse me, if you even believe in retaining charters in the school and if you in the school district, and if you do believe in retaining a charter in the school system, then we are asking you to allow us to find an instructional model that is the best way. Because candidly, hypothetically, if Dr. Marble had her way, we would have a dual language charter school. None of those teachers at WSTEM, I don't believe, are, I don't know, maybe they are. I don't know if they're dual certified teachers of Spanish and elementary. Thank you. I don't know if they're dual language teachers, but if the concept is we're going to lose these teachers, what are we losing them to? Are we losing them because they're losing their school? Or are we losing them because of the instructional piece? It can't be for the latter because we just approved STEM for all elementary wise.
That's a clarifying question. Are we talking about maintaining the lottery to fill in? So my understanding is the STEM school, the STEM charter will conclude. And that students will age out of certain levels of courses, classes. And I know these are taught that multiple classrooms kind of have a shared level with instruction. Are we talking about filling by a lottery first and second grade as well? Like at each level, or are we talking about filling spaces that as we have students move through the progression?
As children matriculate out of WSTEM, there has been a suggestion that then you just backfill it so then you don't have a school that is shrinking and dwindling year after year to the point where by the 29-30 school year, you have one class of a school.
So the lottery would fill, the school would be full until, instead of the final students finishing their final year, the school would be full until the end, and then it would
be
cease.
full until the end, and any parent that enters their child going forward into that lottery would do so knowing that it is ending, that there's only X number of years, but they're okay with that. If someone really wants that, and it sounds like there's a list of people that might, then my thought is.
And I don't know if that's going to continue because once we introduce and put in front our outstanding STEM for all curriculum, there may be families who will say, I want to stay in my neighborhood school. I don't need to go to WSTEM. So I don't know that for sure.
And any future charter would be a charter anew. So we wouldn't shift those students into just a new focused charter. It would be, that charter would end, a new charter would be under consideration, and that future board would adopt or not that charter. It would be a new beginning.
And I don't even want to go that far. I think the recommendation just says that we're committed to continuing to explore and potentially propose.
Okay.
I don't even know if it would go forward.
So to your point, Dr. Means, it would allow the school to be potentially be full, but we don't know for sure that it would be full. That's
Correct.
unknown.
And I'll be candid with you. I super transparent. It's our goal that after a year, families will say, I don't need WSTEM. I can stay in my neighborhood school and get STEM instruction. That's our goal. That is our mission. For every community member that shakes their head and says, no, that's not going to happen, we are prepared. Our design team tomorrow will hit the ground running saying, let's do this. We're going to put together a high quality curriculum. We are excited about the opportunity and some of the skepticism that we're facing in the community.
And you're fully intentioning that run to utilize the incubator, transition those ideas, to welcome people who've been involved in it to come and work with the district. Because there's been a lot of communications we've gotten about something, about being closed and gone. And the sense I've had in our conversations with you and the DAP is that you welcome and are excited about working with parents and staff and community members who have an investment in growing STEM.
Yes. Well stated.
I want to come back, Jason. Can you restate your amendment? We do have a motion in a second.
It was a motion to continue the existing admission lottery system until the aforementioned end date. So no modification to enrollment. That was, I guess, maybe the easiest way to state that. Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to see if there was also a language in that amendment that would require those applying for the lottery to have clear information about when WSTEM would end. Would that be part of the amendment or separate?
I don't think you have to make that part of the amendment. That would be,
Administrative.
that's an administrative component.
Okay.
Good point.
Any final comments or questions on this amendment?
Is there a second?
Yes, I second.
There was a second. Okay.
Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Dr. Hoig,
No.
Mr. Wadier,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
No.
Ms. Hammer Rolland,
No.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger,
No. That amendment fails.
and I propose a new amendment. My amendment would be that it reads, it is recommended that the school board approve the final contract for WSTEM Charter School to conclude in the 29-30 school year, period.
Second.
We have an amendment to limit the statement, the original motion to conclude after the word year. Removing this phrase with the commitment to explore and propose a new charter school concept, non-conflict, and so on and so forth. There's been a motion and a second. Board discussion.
Can I provide some context for that?
And I'm not sure the wording yet.
Oh.
Sorry, I know what you said, but I'm not sure based on what Eric just said.
It is in essence, the amendment is to remove everything after the word year from the original motion.
So back to
It would
what
strike
it was-
right.
Original.
what it was 2 weeks ago.
It would strike with the commitment to explore and propose a new charter school concept.
That's the right. Okay. Get me again. So after
the word year.
Okay. It'll end, yeah, mark it up, please. Thank you.
So it'll be
Okay,
in August.
so we don't have the commitment piece then.
Dr. Hood?
Thank you.
So this has been this is a very emotionally charged topic. I understand how powerfully people feel about WSTEM and about their school. I believe that as a board member, as a district, I believe that we have financial, moral, and practical reasons that we should be opposed to charters in our school, in a public school. I'm just going to run through my thoughts. So from a financial standpoint, we know that specialty schools cost money. You have to recruit and hire educators with specialized training, or we have to commit to train them ourselves, similarly to the way we have for some of our Montessori teachers. And the curriculum that they use is not the same as the general student population. And we know, because we've looked at lots of curriculum in recent years, that curriculum is expensive. So if we spend money on a small portion of our students, we take away from the pot that serves all of our students. And I think to Dr. Means' point, something like less than 6% of our elementary students are in STEM or are in WSTEM. So it's a very small number of our students. So that's kind of my financial lens. From a moral lens, I mean, you can look at our strategic plan, our vision, our mission. It is very clear that we believe that we provide excellent education to all students and that we are here to eradicate inequity. And it's very obvious in this setting that not everyone has access to this program. So we can call it unfair, we can call it inequitable. But when 25 students out of 157 applicants get into the program each year, it is very clear that this is not a program that has equity. We shouldn't focus on meeting just the needs of a very small, lucky few who can make it into a program. We should be providing that kind of education to everybody. And then from a practical standpoint, we heard from one Wilson parent today, but there are lots of Wilson parents that we've heard from in the years. So if you're a WSTEM parent and you're sitting out there, your Wilson parents often feel this way and are too scared to say it to you. No, they talk to us too. They are telling us over and over again, and have really for years, the full time that I've been on the board, that the school within a school model is not successful, that it leaves their children feeling angry and inferior and left out of programs that the WSTEM children have access to. So what I would say is that we should not be providing charter schools or specialty schools in a public school setting of our size. We are not an MPS. We don't have the student population to have whole schools that can just be outset as charter schools. And I will leave it to Dr. Marble and her team to take what is beloved about WSTEM and make sure that all of our students have access to that. Things like project-based learning and being creative in the classroom and working to meet the unique learning needs of all of our students. That's something that not 6% of our students should be getting, but 100% of our students.
So just to piggyback off of what Dr. Hogg said. So yeah, I received dozens of emails from parents at Wilson who share the sentiment of the one Wilson parent we heard from today. It was a big talking point even when I was running for this seat, how Wilson families felt having a school within a school. I think all of the points that we've been kind of going over the last several months in terms of WSTEM as a school, I think the argument can be made for any charter school when we talk about diluting our resources or the duality that you'll see between what is given to the students. I've seen mixed data showing that charter schools act as incubators for a district because the resources aren't equitably given across the district when we have a charter school. Frankly, I don't understand why this board is even being asked to vote on whether or not to have a future charter school, because that's really separate from all of the conversations we've had in the boardroom with the community, that the task force was asked to grapple with. And from what I've heard from the administration, we've really been focusing on building a strong core curriculum, and that's been Dr. Marble's driving charge and driving force when she's been making curricular recommendations, is that to avoid islands of excellence or silos where some students are doing really well and some students aren't doing really well. It's to build the core curriculum. And so I think any money or any funds we use as a district that only serves 6% of our students is terribly unfair for the rest of our students. So there's no charter model for specialty, to me, that is going to be equitable for all of our students. The students who get in, they do feel special because they literally can say they won a lottery to go to a school. That to me is terribly unfair and something, to Dr. Hogg's point, moves away from our strategic plan. So I guess I don't know why we're being asked to vote for that. Any board can adopt a charter model in the future. Right now, we have a lot of big decisions that we're making and that we've been studying and looking at. To me, this seems kind of like a last minute addition. We've looked at the K-6 model and boundary lines, and all of the data that we've been given in terms of where we would shift the boundaries has been determined because of that, assuming that we would go to a K-6 model. If we're going to avoid a school within a school, do we have a standalone building in this district that could even support a charter school if that's where a future board would want to go? So that's why I am hopeful that this board decides to just sunset the WSTEM contract at the end of the 29-30 school year and focus on what we've been saying we're focused on, is that's making all of our schools highly rigorous for all of our students.
As Ms. Heimler Rowland and notably highlighted that oftentimes people refer to charter schools, especially within a district, as an incubator. Again, this says she does, I slightly question that. And I wonder if, and hopefully Dr. Marble or Dr. Means can shed light on if our new system for curriculum review and piloting is able to adequately and hopefully outperform that incubation in a more, well, I would imagine it would be more equitable, but is it able to outperform the possible incubation that a charter school provides?
This is where this gets very complicated because there was a rubric that was used to evaluate the STEM instruction of WSTEM. And that rubric indicated that there was a lot of room for growth in terms of where we are with innovation. But I just need to state that. It's been cited to us often that the WSTEM performs well on state assessments, and that's accurate. The achievement that WSTEM receives annually is very high. But in a school district, we don't just look at achievement, we also look at growth. And the growth component of what we're seeing out of WSTEM isn't strong. And so what that means is that there are children who are coming to WSTEM who are very capable and they are achieving at a high level. But are we taking them from one level to the next every year? That's what you want to do. We're not seeing that level of growth out of WSTEM. So that's been missing in the conversation as well. So your question of can we replicate what WSTEM is doing? We believe that we can do a very good job with STEM instruction for all when we have the ability to focus on providing that instruction for all of our students. And Ms. Hyman Rollins is absolutely correct. I have been telling the community and been saying, I provided the article of we have to stop having islands of excellence in our school system. That the charge that the Division of Academic Performance has been provided is that we have to make sure that our core instruction is strong. So everything that was cited is something that we believe in. I think the complexity of this is that we also have seen the passion from the WSTEM families. And if there's a way for us to try to find some level of compromise, that was the intent behind the recommendation. And there's other recommendations that's in this agenda this evening. We modified the boundary lines of what the board is going to act on a little bit later this evening because of feedback. So I respectfully, I understand that this is a change, but this isn't the only change. It's complex. It's hard. It is complicated because I agree with everything that everyone is saying around the table. But I can't say it strongly enough. We do believe as an administrative team that we must, I won't even use the word sunset because I think it brings a lot of emotion. We have to bring to an end the charter school known as WSTEM by the 29-30 school year. We believe that it will dilute and be a barrier to us effectively implementing STEM for all of our students in the district. So I can't, I'll stop there.
And I mean, I would completely agree. As a former MSTEM student and someone who's surrounded by peers who have both attended traditional elementary community schools and peers who have also attended WSTEM, I think we need to end the charter And when we end the charter, it needs to end. I don't think opening up a commitment to reconsideration is valuable. If a future board deems it valuable, then a future board will consider another charter. I don't think it's important to add that commitment.
And point of clarification, the recommendation as stated it's not for being able to backpedal, and it's for a completely separate, different charter. That these are two things that are packaged together as it currently stands. The motion is to take off the second piece that was added on. So if left on, it's simply a gesture of good faith that if there is interest in the community, that the district is open to exploring a charter of some kind. I don't know what that looks like, but there's that possibility. If we take that language out of here, is that us as a school board saying we are no longer going to entertain any sort of charter?
But is that where we want to spend, is that where we want our administrative team to spend their time, energy, and money? Is what I would pose to this team, is the idea of exploring a new charter. Is that where we want to spend our energy? We know we're fighting. At this point, it feels like we're fighting and clawing our way to get the resources that we have. We have fought for things and not gotten things like having more of our students, our low achieving students, be able to access instructional, like special instruction, instructional aids. Have asked for that for years and we haven't been able to do it. So this is, and again, I'll give you this number. It's 6% of our student population. I'm sorry, 6% of our elementary school population. It's 0.2% of our full population, our full student population, JK to 12. It's 0.2% that we're talking about. Is this where we want to spend our time and energy as a district, or do we want to put it on making sure that we eliminate our islands of excellence and that we have a strong core curriculum for all of our students, as we have promised over and over again in our strategic plan? I would ask you to read our strategic plan and decide if having a charter matches with what we have as a board decided and asked of ourselves.
Here's the motion and say.
Any final comments on this one before we?
Just one final comment. I agree with a lot of the statements that you've made. But I've also heard time and again that WSTEM was like, the whole concept of it is to be an incubator or to build something greater. And I asked myself, would we be doing STEM for all if we didn't have this stuff in place prior? And Dr. Means, he's probably right. It's the incubation is done. We want to take everything from WSTEM and get as much of it as possible into all of the elementary schools. I just like the idea of leaving the door open for, if the next idea for an incubator comes up, that we're not shutting the door on it. So that's last comment on that.
Link, you'll have the last word.
And I would clarify that not only do I believe that the WSTEM charter itself is incompatible as it is currently with the district, and any future extension of it is, I think any commitment to reconsidering a charter at all is incompatible with the goals of the district, along with our financial situation and the moral and ethical and instructional concerns of parents, students, families, and educators.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Morris?
I want to just quickly clarify before we vote.
Good plan, yeah.
So what we are voting on is the motion is to strike the phrase "with the commitment to explore and propose a new charter school concept not in conflict with district instructional programming by the conclusion of the 2027-2028 school year for school board action," and I so move. So it would in essence everything in front of "and I so move." So everything at the end between the word "year" and before "and I so move."
Do you want me to read it?
Can you please?
Yes. It is recommended that the school board approve the final contract for WSTEM Charter School to conclude in the 2029-2030 school year. And I so move.
So that is proposed to be the motion.
And we're voting on the amending it to look like this, not this being. So if you're saying
If you are
yes or
voting-
no, it's about the amendment, not about
Yep.
the statement.
A yes vote results in the shorter removing reconsideration of charter in the future. A no vote maintains the motion as it's originally written. Any questions? Please call the roll.
Mr. Morris?
No.
Dr. Hoik? Yes. Mr. Wadier?
No.
Dr. Worley?
No.
Ms. Hammer Rolland?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
No.
Dr. Jessup Banger?
No. And the motion fails. Back to the original motion. Mr. Meyer?
The considerations that are going into my vote as the primary considerations is that number one, I believe that the action item, if passed, creates a risk to resident enrollment that's not acceptable. In other words, we might lose resident students. Second, the program as it exists now is extraordinarily successful. And as a matter of practice, I wouldn't commit to sunsetting before a successor program has proven itself. Third, I don't see that the conflict with STEM for All is enough to warrant this. I don't see the dilution as sufficient. And I'm sure there's disagreement on that, but it's what I believe. The fourth, which is new, is the risks of someone commencing legal processes, litigation, complaints against the board and the school district. And then once that process starts, the risks of what will come out of it. And it's sort of like, there's the known knowns and the unknown knowns and the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns. Well, the unknown is whether litigation will start. The unknown unknowns is what happens to everyone after the litigation starts. And that's just not acceptable to me. So that's why I will vote the way I vote. Thanks.
Mr. Meyer, I thank you for that. I want to very succinctly answer your four concerns. It's been stated here this evening, and it's been stated to us in other conversations that WSTEM is a successful school. Is it a successful school or is it a successful STEM school? I have not heard that it's a successful STEM school. I heard that it has an extraordinary school community. And so I give that to you. In terms of enrollment loss, I don't know if we're going to lose enrollment or not. There has been threats of people will leave the district. I also know that there may be a draw to our school community if we are able to tell all families, regardless of where they move, that they're going to receive STEM instruction that is extraordinary and good. That actually may bring in more families. The issue of the conflict with STEM, I want to make sure I'm very clear with this. If I could itemize the amount of time since August that our Division of Academic Performance has been invested in talking about WSTEM, the amount of time we could have saved would be extraordinary. And so the conflict is real. The conflict is extremely real. it has inundated us in terms of the amount of time. I'll be candid with you, and it kind of leads into the last component. I've talked to our school attorney about WSTEM more than any other issue this school year. So the conflict is serious. I firmly believe that if we continue to have a charter school that is identified as WSTEM, it will dilute our ability to implement STEM for all. And so the last component, the threat of a lawsuit from the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. We have received legal counsel that we believe that the exposure, there is exposure, but there's limited exposure. And candidly, when you are operating a school district of our size, there's always exposure when someone wants to pursue a suit against you. I'm disappointed with it. And I will state this for the record. I've stated this to the media as well. Our academic team, nor have I ever said that we are trying to sunset and inspire WSTEM because of racial imbalance. We've never said that. We've always said that it was because of instructional issues. And so respectfully, I would tell the attorneys at the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty that their allegations are false and are weak.
And to counterpoint to what you're saying, I agree there's difference of opinion about the risk to enrollment and what the magnitude of the downside outcome would be. Another point with respect to the dilution and effort that has been into this, much of that has started after the challenge to the existence of the school began. And so we sort of created that. And as far as litigation risk, well, I'll just speak from my chair about what I think could happen and how persuasive what everyone has said is on me. And I'll just leave it at that. No, but wait, I need to be very clear.
Sure.
I have confidence and trust in you, Dr. B.
Thank you, sir.
So when I talk about risk, I'm not referring to anything with respect to you.
Yes.
I'm referring to how things go when the legal war starts. And that's what I'm talking about. Thanks.
I have a question, one question and a comment. This may be something that is too nuanced for us to adequately address right now. And it sounds like you've spent a lot of time working through this. What does the diluted resources look like? Let's say we keep WSTEM and we implement STEM for all at the same time. Are we walking out with a half-baked curriculum for STEM for all? What are the actual downsides what are the tangible downsides we're looking at?
We know that WSTEM is not reaching the level of innovation in terms of STEM instruction. And so we believe that we have an obligation to help them get to a place of innovation and to improve what they are providing instructionally from a STEM perspective. To do that work in conjunction of trying to develop a new curriculum for the approximately 2,558 elementary school students and the other schools in the district will dilute the focus and the resources that the Division of Academic Performance has.
Can I help you with your argument?
Yes, please.
We're told that the STEM programs have mandated state requirements. And that, well, I won't say neglect, I'll say there hasn't been a lot of focus from the Fisher Building on oversight with regards to whether the operation at Wilson complies with those requirements. And that sort of seemed okay because their test scores are so good. But then are they really what they say they are with regard to STEM? And Dr. Means says, I don't want to put words in your mouth, that we need to start actually being faithful to the oversight. And that's going to take some time. Now, on the other hand, then the STEM group has said they will become more self-sufficiently vigilant on those compliance efforts as well. So just to try to articulate the different nuances here, what's going on. Yeah, thanks.
But then what are we gonna do for the next 5 years? You're not gonna just like let them be out there floating. I mean, you're going to put resources into.
I don't think so.
I think this is where the conversation with the governing board will have to take place in regards to, so how, and we started that. Ms. Foch was with me last week. We have to start looking at, so how do we provide some type of curricular expert that's on site that can provide that type of oversight, that the governing board is providing some type of support and making sure that they're in place. I think there are other ways where we can make sure that there's some level of support to WSTEM without taking resources from the district. They have fiduciary authority as a governing board to invest in their school. And they're doing it now. I mean, they're fundraising and they're getting funds for curricular materials and other things. If we're going to continue over the next 5 years, then part of that restructure for the next 5 years has to be, so how do we ensure that there's some type of curricular support on site to get that school at a level that we believe innovation should be at?
But we, as a district, are not investing in that. We're not investing in their materials or their
That would be the
additional
dilution.
resources.
That would be the dilution.
Something that we haven't talked about yet with this vote is the WSTEM Governance Council or Governance Board hasn't even said that they agree with this compromise. So they won't be meeting until November 6th. So the board could be voting on a compromise that's not even a compromise if they don't.
They've made it
think
clear.
it is.
They've made it clear that while this has been, you're right, Ms. Rollin, that while this has been extended, that they have a community that they have to check in with to see if it's going to be approved. Yeah.
And I'll just say again, I think everything that we've talked about in the second part of this conversation is going to be the same issues that the board and district and families will be in conflict if another charter school is started in this district. There's no way, in my opinion, and from what I've seen in other communities, that any charter school model is not going to lead to this type of conflict and feeling and people feeling like they're missing out on something special. And so I think it's disappointing to me that that's included in this vote.
So Will alleges in their statement announcing a possibility for legal action that the district website says, quote, the student population of WSTEM is not as diverse as the district's overall population, end quote. And they allege this is just code for race and the district's desire to shift around students to have a preferable balance. You've addressed that is not the district's intention. As I understand, the diversity aspect is referring to the actual elementary school populations or boundaries from which it draws from. Could you shed some light on that and explain the diversity compared to the district's overall population?
The diversity at WSTEM, let me say this differently. The demographic makeup of WSTEM is not commensurate with what the overall demographic makeup of our school district is. It's not as diverse.
Like from racially?
From a racial standpoint.
And it's not as I understand it, it's not the goal of the district to, quote, shift around students who have a preferable balance, end quote. It's to address the trends.
The racial balance of WSTEM is not why we're proposing this. I want to be very clear. Other people may have mentioned it. We have been speaking about this strictly from an instructional standpoint. That's not why this is before the board. The racial balance. That's not the reason why.
I appreciate you for making that abundantly clear. Then I would ask, in addition, I'm not familiar with the original, this statement only references the district website. Is this fact that it's not as diverse as the overall population? That's not a contributing factor, obviously, but why did the district choose to mention that?
Will, in their threatening letter, found, and I'm a little uncomfortable discussing the will letter.
I understand.
So I want to limit what we discuss here around that issue, but they have taken components of statements and they've put it together for an argument, but is not salient to the recommendation as being presented this evening.
Mm-hmm. And the will, as I mentioned, Will has released sort of a press release, I would call it. Is the actual letter to the school district public, or is that accessible to the public, if anyone's aware?
I think they made it accessible through their website, but we can also make it available.
Okay. I think,
It's the same document, if that's what you're asking. It's not separate.
okay. I just see I found it.
I want to come back to a statement that I want to quickly make about this. First of all, I want to acknowledge that I don't know what the state of this will lawsuit looks like. It is possible you know more after having consulted with lawyers of some kind. I leave all of that to your discretion. But speaking as I graduated from the Montessori school, which is in some ways similar to a charter. There are certainly differences, but it's hard to watch a system that feels similar to me be considered to be taken out. However, my sense is that charter schools are very similar to what we refer to as laboratories of democracy. Which is the idea that when we don't know how to address an issue at maybe say a state or a federal level, we let lower levels of government try and experiment, and then we see what works and we bring it back to everyone. I think that in many ways, charter schools are laboratories of education. WSTEM has been around for a while and has found a way to do well. It has created excellent STEM education. And because of that, I think that it has, as we said, achieved its purpose. We have figured out these resources that we can now take and integrate back into our classrooms. Now, it is impossible to, of course, put all of the hours in a WSTEM day into 1 hour in a regular classroom. That's the case. But we have very qualified people who are able to look at the curriculum. They have a lot of time, assuming we don't dilute their resources, to be able to find what makes WSTEM so great and bring that to everybody in our district. Beyond that, it's fiscally responsible to be able to consolidate which buildings we are using, and it helps save money while increasing the quality of education we are bringing to everyone. And WSTEM is excellent. But I would urge the board to vote to sunset it for the reasoning of bringing what it brings as best they can to everyone, even if that means sacrificing some of the advancements for a select few.
So, unlike some of my colleagues, I am not opposed to the concept of a charter school, depending on how it's set up. I think we have both if you look at the research and the examples in practice, there have been charter schools that have been really important and offer very important opportunities. I think like about the Alliance School in Milwaukee, for example. Consideration, we were just talking earlier this evening about a school in Oshkosh that's being considered to open up to be a public school that would focus on African culture. So I think there are some possibilities, and I'd like to trust the administration that their approach to any future charter school would take into account a number of things, including the challenges of putting a school within a school and how difficult that is. So that model is, we have a lot of data that says that isn't the most beneficial way to do a charter school. And secondly, that the charter school the topic be carefully selected so that it actually does create that idea of an incubator, and that we don't enter into it just to fill seats, but we enter into it because it offers us some new and exciting opportunity that we don't have another way to explore as a district. So that is the reason I remain open to the possibility of a charter. I think that I will caution and say that I think that this compromise does potentially have some draw of energy from our DAP staff, and that it's only going to work out if there is a large infusion of parent and staff interests in creating a charter school. I'm not envisioning that we'll do this just to fulfill this promise, but rather that we are open to the idea of it if there is a motivated group that can organize itself to suggest a useful and new and innovative incubator type of situation, something that we're not offering, and we haven't really found a good way to offer it in our other schools. I do think that there is a long-term commitment in the school district to, to project-based learning. I'm excited what you brought forward tonight in terms of STEM for All, that it might finally hit the road and start driving, that our students would have more and more of that. I know we've got some new curriculums that we put in the last year that support project-based learning. So anyway, I think that any language that I will be careful about not having language. I know this doesn't completely close out the idea of charters, but I'm not in favor of making a statement, at least with my vote, to limit the concept of a charter down the road, because I think it can go either way. It can be equitable, more or less. It's all about how we go about doing it. Thank you.
Lots of notes here. Dr. Worley hit one key word there for me that I was scribbling around here quite a bit, and it's something I think we're forgetting in a lot of cases, but we keep asking for it. It's trust. It's the communities at WSTEM that are asking for our trust in them to do what's best for their children. It's the trust that the rest of our community, when we talk about that 99.8% for the rest of our students, have trust that we're going to give them a high quality education. I think we talked about some of these things here, and I think to Mr. Meyer's point, he said something there around, do we have trust in the successor program that we're trying to bring to all students? And I'm going to say yes. I haven't seen it. I don't know what it is, but I have trust that we've hired the highest quality staff and the highest quality administrative team to develop that. It's proof with the students that we have in this room, and it's proof with the students that have come to the microphone that are at WSTEM, that are in this district. I think it's proof that we are committed to replicating the STEM instruction for all students. We've got trust in replicating the community engagement that the WSTEM families, that all the STEM families have. And I would challenge all of them to have trust in their communities to bring that same energy and that same commitment, no matter what school they're at. And I hope it's still in the district, and I hope it's still within the student population of the Wauwatosa School District. I think those family commitments we talked about, and we heard families say, it's not about WSTEM. It's about the family commitments. It's about the engagement that we have. It's about all these things that I would look at are the soft skills that we want all the children learn, along with the technical hard skills that they're going to get from these high quality educators that we have at all of our schools. I'm going to make lots of examples here because I received 216 emails over the last 14 days, and I've gotten through 80% of them, but a lot of them came from in opposition and in support of what we're talking about here today. But I look at the non-STEM families that chimed in from Eisenhower, where if you looked at just a couple years ago, someone would have said there's no high quality going on there. But between this governing body and our administration, they responded to the needs of that school, to that family and that school community there, to give them everything they needed to watch them have the growth that Dr. Mean talks about here, and to be able to succeed from then to where we are today and to where they're going. We look at the Jefferson community, another community that has very strong family groups and commitments. We look at where all three of my kids go, in the Lincoln community. We talk about how high the WSTEM school scores on these things. We have more than one high-performing school that's ranked in the state. We have the best school ranked in the elementary school ranked in the state that came from the high-quality education, the high-quality staff that we have here. And it proves that if you have trust in what we're doing here, have trust in our direction that we're trying to follow and create this roadmap and this path to that North Star, we get the outcomes that we look for. We're investing. There's all kinds of other things that are come up when we talk about fiscal responsibility and whether the referendum passes or whether it doesn't. All these other things that come into the mix. It's about to be November. We got a lot of questions to answer. But what we can do for each one of these families, for every community, is really step back and look at this from the lens of the children, the JKers, the Tostatas 3Kers, our high school students, everything in between, and have trust that we're giving them the strongest form of education that they have, regardless of what it's called, regardless of where it's at. We're investing in all of them to give not only just STEM for all, but incorporating all the best things. As we said, whether we call it an incubator or not, I like what Ben called it, and I forgot it, the laboratories of democracy. If we allow that to play out, we're doing exactly that. We're building on something that wasn't started with this board, wasn't started with the last board, but it's been put in a process, and we've been seeing all the things that come from it, watching the incremental change that happens and watching the growth that occurs and watching how far we can come if we trust into the things that we're installing. I will trust in here, and I will be the first one to say, I am skeptical about most things. I have to read things over with a fine-tooth comb. It's my insurance and risk management background. I read and thumb everything. But I still have trust that whether it's an insurance, that my insurance agent company, the policy that's written there is written in the best circumstance for me, because that's why I'm investing and buying into it. Same thing, I trust that our school district has the best interest of creating, regardless of what our STEM for All, the name of it, the title of the programs, all these things are, that program will be of high quality. It will be something that, to Dr. Mean's point, it will create that lighthouse district for people to come in. We're already seeing that. We're seeing teachers come from far and wide to come and work here. I'm looking at the new teachers that came in when we thought we were going to lose all these teachers in the district. Well, before I got off this board, when we talked about human growth and development, great teachers still came. We have a lot of teachers that came over from Elmbrook School District. We got a lot of teachers that come from Shorewood. We got a lot of teachers that come from all over the place, because this is the place that they want to teach and that, to be able to have greater opportunities. So again, the last thing I will say on this is my vote, as hard as it will be, is going to be tied to that trust that we have of moving the needle forward and getting there. I am like Dr. Worley. I'm not from here. Dr. Worley, you're closer than I am. But growing up in Central Florida, we had tons of charter schools, tons of magnet schools. I think I went through 7 different school types in the same school district. We went from block scheduling to 4x4 to 5x5 to year-round schooling, you name it. They were those testing grounds to figure out what works best for students. I came out in the top 1% of my graduating class. I think I've done pretty well in life and continue to move forward, and it had nothing to do with those. Did I want to go to the fine arts magnet school? Sure, I didn't. Still excelled in fine arts. Did I want to go to the advanced mathematics charter school that was closer to my house than the school I went to? Sure, I didn't. Still came out with high academic standards. And I knew nothing about the K through 12 governance and the academic system, but I knew that my family and I knew that the community I lived in, which wasn't even the best community, had trust in the people that are on this side of the table, as well as the people in their community, to know that there are great things being done behind these walls with the commitments that they're making to the community and to all of you, as well as the commitments they're making to each one of those children, that they're not going to leave any single one behind. Not 6%, not 0.2%, that 100% of them are being marched forward in the vision that we see as our North Star. I'll leave it there.
Couple comments from me. I tackle this as a former parent of a non-instrumentality charter board member. I tackle it as a parent in the district. I tackle it as ultimately a board member here. And I think I want to kind of thank the parents who we've heard from who are really passionate advocates for their kids' education. We sat and heard from folks last June in Underwood when we listened to and heard students at USTEM talk about the passion and the deep amount of care that they have for their education. We listened and talked about it over the last several weeks as we've talked to parents and heard from parents at WSTEM. Parents care a lot about their education. And when it comes to education, it's personal, it's scary, and I understand all of those things. As we move forward, I think it's completely incumbent upon us to continue to look for ways to make sure that parents and families are engaged in opportunities for being able to support student learning in ways that make sense, in ways that also honor the expertise of our staff, and that we are at our best as a district and a community when there's deep partnerships between parents, teachers, the district, and the community. I've heard a lot across all of our conversations as a board, not about the curriculum. And it's an interesting conversation that I'm watching unfold of the district really wanting to focus on infusion of STEM curriculum for all students, STEM learning modalities, STEM content, and really pushing and advocating so that all students have access to that. There's also this conversation around the importance of different pedagogies and cultures within our schools, which is really what all the different communities that I've heard from have talked about repeatedly. It hasn't been the curriculum. It's been these things that they love. It's been project-based, peer-to-peer learning, excellent educators, multi-levels of learning, integrated learning, child-centered learning, family engagement. And those things I think are valuable and exist in all places. I remember listening to the conversation in June and thinking, my kids were at Roosevelt and had all of those things. And so I think when we are at our best, we need to deliver really strong curriculum that's consistent, that's excellent. We have to make sure we've got really great pedagogy, that we've got great educators and teachers who are compensated well, who are driving and driving the work of our students and our learning. We need parents involved, and we need cultures that support all these different innovative practices. Mr. Morris, I liked what you were articulating of, I have seen over the last 2 years incredible work done across the district when we have provided resources to schools, to the district, to drive outcomes. We are seeing those successes consistently and repeatedly. So I'm going to trust that they've established a track record of being able to do this successfully, that they'll continue to do so. I do that with all things in my life with anxiety, because at any time there's change, there's risk. There's also a lot of risk if we don't be creative in how we are approaching things with the resources that we have. So I want to thank all the families who've communicated their perspectives. It is important for us as a board to take those, to grapple with those, and to manage them. I want to thank the administration for rising to the expectation that the board years ago set out, which was to drive excellence in our schools, to make sure that we are the very best school district for every single child, that we have outstanding curriculum that's delivered by outstanding educators across the entire Wauwatosa School District. We have pushed and challenged you to do difficult things and to make hard decisions. The board isn't always going to agree with itself, that everyone is not always going to be on board. But I've heard pretty consistently tonight that the board also believes that we've got some really outstanding educators doing outstanding.
Can I ask a follow-up question, Mr. Morris? So, Mr. Morris, speaking directly to your comments. Yes. For a question. You're selling insurance
No, I don't sell insurance.
Well, what,
I work in the insurance industry.
you work in the insurance industry and you speak of, you trust the underwriters. So I trust Dr. Means. But what's our insurance if enrollment falls, the successor program actually doesn't work out? And having been around here for 20 years, not every program works out. Litigation, well, sometimes you lose. What's our insurance? Oh, and let's talk about more funding from the legislature. We trusted that would happen. So,
Are you asking me if I trust?
well, no,
I
I'm
do
asking you, well, you voted yes on the budget that trusted the legislature. I'm asking you, what's our insurance here if things don't go well? Because my lens is usually what happens if things don't go well? And I've tried to make that the lens that I speak from with my voice. So I spoke in my comments to risk. I did not speak to whether I trusted Dr. Means. So what's our insurance here when things go badly? If things don't work out the way we think, enrollment falls.
Education isn't insurance though. I was making comparison too, but what you're talking about is assurance. And for me, to give assurance to my statement and what you're saying is that I trust in the professionals here that have been hired by an expert that was brought in before I was here to give us the high quality outcomes of what we're asking for. They haven't, so we're stepping in here in this space, they haven't failed yet. So I'm not gonna have the assumption that they're gonna start failing now because we're changing something drastically that's gonna go in a different direction. Well, if we were taking away something and saying that we have nothing to put in place, what we're saying is we're trusting those to put something into place, to take the time to create something that is for all that is of high quality. High quality, just like the changes that took place in the curriculum in the classroom right now at the K-5 level. I trusted it because I'm watching the outcomes of my J-care, my second grader, and my fourth grader having a tough time, but learning and excelling and seeing them move exponentially. And they're already, I'm not worried about my kids. I worry about the rest of the district's kids. I'm worried about all the ones that are at a disadvantage that my kids are not.
Well,
So what I say,
I'm worried about kids.
yes,
But what if the outcome of the litigation is beyond our policy limits on our insurance coverage? What if we were 5,700 resident students for the year 1 through 19 of my time on the board, and now we're below 55 resident students? What do we do if we go below 5,300 resident students? I mean, what's our plan if things don't go well?
what's our plan if there's a school shooting? What's our plan if there's an
We're not talking about
we're talking about what ifs. We're talking about what ifs.
Well,
I'm
yeah.
putting out the no. I'm gonna give you, if we're talking about what ifs and all these things that we have no control over. So what if those things happen?
Well, my appetite for risk is less than yours.
How do you know that?
Because I've seen you vote yes on risky financial budgeting when I voted no on the basis of risk. Therefore, your appetite for risk is higher than mine. And your appetite to spend down the fund balance was higher than mine.
Gentlemen, I want to keep
Yes, that's
us,
what I'm trying
I
to
want
get
to keep
here.
us narrowly focused on.
What
this
I'm
agenda.
saying here is to Mr. Myers' point there is trust and assurance has to come from a place that I am looking forward to the things that are being put into place. And I am trusting those that have the experience, the time, the knowledge. I trust and have assurance in you that you've been on this board to do those same things. But you've told us that in the past, we've made different changes and different things that didn't work in our favor. I accept that. So if I'm here 15 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, I will live a just fine life knowing that if I am in this space and people like they've done you continuously reelect and put me in this seat, that they have trust in somebody who's looking for those assurances for that in the best interest of all children. Same thing that you're looking for.
I mean, it's flowery words, but in the end, you have to write the check to pay for what you committed to do.
You sat here as a board member to write that check to pay for what we've all done. Because we are.
I voted no on the budget.
But you are one of, you, as you've told us, you are one of the whole.
I think we've moved past what we're talking about on this agenda item.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we have a motion on the floor.
I think I'm going to call the question. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Dr. Hoyk, Yes.
Mr. Wadier.
Yes.
Dr. Worley.
Yes.
Ms. Hammer Roland.
Yes.
Mr. Meyer.
No.
Dr. Jessica Baker.
Yes. That motion passes. We will now move to our next agenda item. Action to retire M-STEM, concluding with the class of 2030.
It is recommended that the school board approve the retirement of M-STEM concluding with the class of 2031, and I so move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any board discussion on this item?
I'd like to note again that as a former MSTEM student, despite the efforts of high quality educators, MSTEM still underperformed and underdelivered for me and my peers. And it's consistently shown that MSTEM doesn't even result in a higher turnout for those students towards STEM careers. So I would ask the board to please retire MSTEM.
As a former M-STEM parent, I would say I'm seeing similar, as well as looking at the district numbers and our evaluation that we did by a very well-respected STEM leader in the region who led that assessment. I think that it's clear that we can do better, and the first step to, in my mind, to doing better is to learn from what we've done, leverage resources that we can, and challenge ourselves to come up with a stronger program, which is what I think our DAP is aiming at doing over the next few years.
I would also agree. I think all the time we spent on the previous one was kind of a precursor to how the next two were going to go. Now that we've done that, my topic is we have needs, wants, and nice to haves. In my opinion, we needed STEM for all. We voted on that. That's what we're doing. I want to have the situation where we don't have schools within schools. We voted on that. That is where we're going to, I believe, end up. And then the nice to have is kind of where this falls for me, which is the nice to have would be take the opportunity and explore a charter that may be targeted at middle school or high school in order to be the incubator for the next thing, be something. And again, I don't know what that thing is. We are going through a technical revolution as every month in this country. Well, maybe something with more of a focus on that. It's not for this board to decide, but I trust in Dr. Means and his team, and trust that given an opportunity to put something together to be the next incubator, that if there's something there, they'll come up with it. That's all.
Any other board comments or questions? Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Mr. Morris.
Yes.
Dr. Hoik.
Yes.
Mr. Wadier.
Yes.
Dr. Worley.
Yes.
Ms. Hammer Roland.
Yes.
Mr. Meyer.
No.
Dr. Jessica Baker.
Yes. And that motion passes. Next is action to retire USTEM at the end of the 29-30 school year.
It is recommended that the school board approve the retirement of USTEM at the end of the 2029-2030 school year, and I so move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any board discussion on this item?
I'd like to thank the board for your two previous votes. And I would hope you would continue this trend.
I think it's obvious, but I just want to make sure that we are viewing the USTEM community as the incubator resource as well. Over the next few years, they've also done some important work. Even if our STEM schools haven't fully lived up to STEM, they certainly have shown us the importance of trying different ways of doing work. And I also want us to really remember the message that was given to us at the public meeting about the parents who are searching for, and Dr. Means, you and I have talked about this, searching for the very best educational opportunity for their students, for their children who don't thrive in traditional classrooms for a variety of different reasons. It was real clear that project-based learning and classrooms set up the way they are in STEM programs have provided, as even mentioned tonight, have provided some level of support that we aren't managing other ways. I wish we were getting 100% of our state funds for supporting students who need more support in the classroom. We're not getting that right now, but it would be, we as a district still have to fulfill that, but I just imagine if we had those additional funds that we would have even more opportunities to meet the needs of these students. So I want to really put forward that will be, I would ask that be a strong ask of the board going forward, even in our times of low resources, that we need to find those different learning pathways. Students learn different ways. We're doing that well, but we probably can do better because as parents have told us that more is needed. Thank you.
USTEM is just as valuable to us as WSTEM. Mr. Abdamala is here this evening. Thank you for staying with us. There are some staff members at USTEM that have been trailblazers for us in the space of developing the concept of STEM for all. And quite honestly, Mr. Abdamala, I've told him to his face, it's our goal after tonight that we're going to try to hire some of those teachers to be some of our initial STEM instructors. Because I think it's an exciting place. I know he doesn't like that because he wants to keep those teachers in his building. But the last thing I would say, Dr. Worley, is that meeting on June 13th, 2024 is something I'll never forget when we met at USTEM. There was as much passion as we've heard the last 2 weeks from WSTEM that we've received from USTEM. And we are committed to them and making sure that they have the same runway of sunsetting that we've offered to WSTEM. We have extended a teacher lead stipend of a significant amount to USTEM this year, just as another point of evidence, Dr. Worley, of our investment in USTEM. So all your points are well taken and have been implemented and will continue to do so.
Seeing no other board comments or questions, Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Dr. Hoig,
Yes.
Mr. Wadier,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes.
Ms. Heimer Roland,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
No.
Dr. Jessup Banger.
Yes. And that motion passes. We're shifting gears a bit. Strategic Goal 5, Culture and Community. The next set of items are issues around open enrollment, around boundaries within our school district, and around modifications of consideration of shifting to a JK through 6 model. And these are really all interconnected and have a lot of relationship with each other. The board has discussed these at previous meetings, at a board retreat, and landed on a variety of different kind of perspectives that folks are welcome to grapple with and share this evening and again at this meeting. Can I have On number A, action to approve a resolution regarding open enrollment governance strategy, implementation of policy 5113, open enrollment program inter-district minimum student threshold. Ms. Hammerall, can you read this one?
It is recommended that the school board approve a resolution regarding open enrollment governance strategy, implementation of policy 5113, open enrollment program, inter-district, minimum student threshold, and I so move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Hoig. I want to read the resolution as it's written for the board consideration. This is also available on board docs. Whereas it is the responsibility of the Wauwatosa School Board to utilize policy 5113 to determine the number of new open enrollment seats, and whereas pursuant to Wisconsin statute 118.51, parens 5, parens A1, and board policy 5113, annually, the school board shall establish the availability of district-wide open enrollment space by determining the number of regular education and special education seats in the schools, programs, classes, or grades at its January board meeting. In setting space availability, the school board may choose to set no limitations or may set limits on availability using the following criteria. 1, district practices, policies, procedures, or other factors regarding class size ranges for particular programs or classes. 2, district practices, policies, procedures, or other factors regarding student-faculty ratio change ranges for particular programs, classes, or buildings. And 3, enrollment projections, which account for factors that include but are not necessarily limited to likely short and long-term economic development in the community, housing starts, current and future needs for special programs, laboratories, or other initiatives. And whereas utilizing the minimum of each class size range would be consistent with the district's implementation of a JK through 6th grade configuration to be formally enacted in the 2029-2030 school year. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the Wauwatosa School Board requests that the administration develop an open enrollment space calculation proposal for the 25-26 school year, utilizing the minimum of each class size range. The board will consider this proposal and determine the number of regular education open enrollment seats at its January 2025 board meeting. The high-level synopsis of this, and it was reviewed by legal counsel, is that we are directing the district to pursue for the 25-26 school year, utilizing the minimum open enrollment calculation. Any board discussion, conversation, or comment? Mr. Meyer.
My opinion is that this minimum strategy gives the superintendent, well, one less variable to have to work with as we go to K6 and we move boundaries. That's already a number of variables that affect each other in ways that some we can anticipate and some we can't. And he needs to know some certainty here about where the open seats are going to be and where the teachers need to be before we start to say, now we're going to start thinking about more open enrollment kids. So in other words, I'm trying to facilitate this very big task of going to K6 and moving elementary boundaries to balance the student load around the district.
Other comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Dr. Hoig. Yes. Mr. Wadier,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes.
Ms. Hammer Roland,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger.
Yes. And that motion passes. Next is action to approve the implementation of a JK6 elementary school grade configuration and school boundary line modifications in accordance with policy 5120.
It is recommended that the school board approve the implementation of a JK6 elementary school grade configuration and school boundary line modifications in accordance with policy 5120, and I so move.
You may have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Board discussion and comments.
Dr. Jessup Anger, if I can just point out that this recommendation has been modified. There was a request from community members to consider not moving neighborhood 25. And so in an effort to try to meet people midway, I did work with the staff at MD Roppers, they're the demographer that looks at all the different neighborhoods. And we did find a pathway where if you split neighborhood, I've memorized this now, I believe. If you split neighborhood 29, and you go, I think that would be the eastern portion of neighborhood 29 would be assigned to Washington, and the western portion of 29 would be would remain with Roosevelt, that we still are able to create balance based on their projections. So I want to thank the people who reached out, who asked us to consider not moving 25, because I understand neighborhood 25, that felt like it was more of a long travel. I know that there's been at least one question from, because I think the McKinley to Lincoln neighborhood is a unique one in terms of their secondary pathway. And there's been a question of, does that shift for the secondary pathway impact the students who are in school now? And the answer will be no, that when we make the shift of these attendance zone areas, that those are the children who have their secondary pathway impacted. And then finally, if you give us an affirmative vote on this evening, Ms. Laura Geisler, who's our Director of Safety, will immediately start working on hazardous pathway plans for two specific areas. The first area is neighborhood 11, 12, and 13 that currently attends Eisenhower and will be shifted. Any new enrolled students will be shifted to Underwood immediately. And the other neighborhood that we have more of a runway and time to address is neighborhoods, I believe it's 34 and 35. And those are neighborhoods that are currently assigned to Washington that would go to Jefferson. So we would have to work quickly for neighborhoods 11, 12, and 13, and we would have a longer runway. But Mr. Pinion and I have talked to Ms. Geisler. She's ready to go if there's an affirmative vote on this proposal this evening. But thank you for, again, the community members who gave us those recommendations for modifications to this recommendation for you. I think it works. I did have a chance to reach out to Mr. Joe Russell, who's the principal at Washington. He did speak with his ETA, so they also were notified before this evening about this change as well.
Or comments or questions? Mr. Meyer.
So on the question of moving from K5 to K6, for those who haven't heard me speak to this yet, it was the 1990, 1991 timeframe, maybe 92. When I arrived in the school district in 1988, we were a K6 school district. And the school system moved to a K5 because we had overcrowding in the elementary schools. It was not done for a purely educational reason. It was done because of space in the buildings. Now we come here 32, 33, whatever years later, and we're finding that we're going to have more space in the buildings, and we can go back to that K6, which as a parent back then, it was much preferred that the kids were in K6 because it was back then a scary thing to have our sixth graders go up to middle school and be with the seventh and the eighth graders. I mean, they were safe and everything, but it just was, there was a higher comfort level with sixth graders being in the elementary school. So if there's concerns out there, I would say, fear not, you're actually maybe going to a better paradigm that existed long ago before space forced us to move to the K5 paradigm. Thanks.
And I want to bring it back a few hours ago when Dr. Hoig asked a question around sixth grade programming. We can't ignore, and Dr. Marble has pointed this out, all of the presentations and all the recommendations we've presented to you this evening is part of our more comprehensive plan of what we want to do for our instructional system here in the district. Sixth grade instruction, according to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, is elementary school instruction. So there are requirements that actually makes the programming for our sixth graders more difficult. I also believe, and Dr. Hoyt and I have commiserated over this, now being on the backside of having a sixth grader in my household and now having a seventh grader, sixth grade is a developmental year that if we can have the time to structure this right, and I had a great, every other week I meet with Mr. Pinion and his entire team. If we can give Miss Emily O'Connor, our Director of Student Success, who oversees all of our counseling and social work, if we can give her a runway of 5 years to make sure that our JK6 schools are developmentally ready to receive our sixth graders again, I can guarantee you that these will be warm, developmentally appropriate schools that we currently don't have. The transition of our fifth graders to sixth grade going into middle school, to Mr. Meyer's point, I think we've just kind of shrugged it off and this is coming from a former middle school principal. I think we throw kids into the deep end and the kids who make it, they survive. And the kids who don't, in a district like ours, we haven't had enough resources to really wrap our arms around them to make sure that they are taken care of. The consequences of that is that we don't identify some of those needs for our children until 8th, 9th, 10th grade. And in some cases, it's too late. And so we're coming to you from an instructional standpoint, but we're also coming to you knowing that if we can give our team this runway, and I think you've recognized this, we talked about this at your board retreat. We're demonstrating a high level of strategic planning in that we're talking about doing some of these things in 4 or 5 years. And so giving Ms. Geisler the time to develop a hazardous plan, to give Ms. O'Connor time to develop the developmental components of ensuring that the 5th and 6th grade feels different than 3rd and 2nd grade. Those are things that we know that we have to deliver, and we're going to do it well. So thank you.
And may I add that back in the early 90s, when we moved to a K-5, the parents of the 6th graders who were going to middle school wanted assurances that their 6th graders would have physical separation in the buildings from the 7th and 8th graders. And so the building management, as far as what classrooms for what classes and such, it becomes easier for you then. And, you won't have to deal with that anymore if we go to K-6.
Yeah. The hour's getting late. All I would just suggest to you, I think you all remember this, but on September 28th, you all were very excited about this component and that you see that this is the base. It's ironic that this is your last action item of the evening, but I would be remiss if I didn't share with the community that I'm using this as a platform for board members to weigh in on. You made it very clear that you want this to be the centerpiece of all the comprehensive work that we have discussed tonight, that it should be the driving force around your long-range facility planning, and that it becomes the long-range driving force of what you want to see with the instructional program, that you want to make sure that our grade configuration drives the work because you felt that it not only was centered in academic and instructional excellence, but also ensuring that we're developing the whole child. That was what you left your retreat on September 28th. And that was very uplifting and encouraging for me in my role as your superintendent to hear the board so energetic about your vision with this JK6 model.
Thank you, Dr. Means. Any other board comments or questions? Dr. Means, you mentioned a lot of the items where I think we've got incredible opportunity with this model to be able to deliver on. Areas that continue to need to be addressed, as you mentioned several of those as we make any consideration of change. And I look forward to seeing what you can do. A lot of what I want to keep underlining is that the board set out a target and expectation that we would drive better achievement and outcomes around our district. And we have held Dr. Means and the staff to look under the hood, examine everything, and tonight is the culmination of a lot of that work. And we must be accountable to ensuring that the outcomes are achieved, both as a board, as a district, and how we implement each of these items. Many folks have commented on the exceptional educators that we have with us in our district right now. I'm confident they will get there. And we need to make sure as a community, we provide them the resources and the supports that they need to be able to drive success of every kid. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Dr. Hoik. Yes. Mr. Bodier,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes.
Ms. Hammer Rolland,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger.
Yes. And that recommendation motion passes. It is 10:18 PM. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
May I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Dr. Hoik. Yes. Mr. Wadier,
Yes.
Dr. Worley.
Yes.
Ms. Hammer Rolland,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger.
Yes, and we are adjourned. Thank you all.